How does it feel? Like it's someone else's. It isn't.
This was a mistake. Let's begin. We kick off with some biting political commentary as an octogenarian president pops pills before stepping out onto the convention floor. Pills he requires just to function in his day-to-day life. This is Joe Biden. This is Indiana Jones. This is Thaddeus Ross. Last seen with a mustache and a different face, Ross's most prominent recent role in this franchise was as frontman for the UN Sokovia Accords during Captain America's Civil War, the push for government oversight that fatefully split the Avengers. In the intervening years, the actor William Hurt sadly passed away, and in casting a grumpy old man, the producers naturally turned to Harrison Ford, who has been method acting as a grumpy old man for the last 20 years.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, no. It never got to you. It's okay.
I could have had a career.
He was, according to reports, an absolute nightmare to work with, but he threw himself into the role.
Well, what a break. What a break.
Playing a Red Hulk or talking about playing a Red Hulk, which is more difficult?
Oh, it's much more difficult to talk about it than it is to actually do it. One of the great things about Marvel movies is you don't have to talk about them.
Exactly.
You can just sit down and enjoy them.
Yes.
Because you have no right to have an expectation of where it goes.
And he was evidently so pleased to be there.
Bucket list achieved, a Red Harrison Ford. But how easily can you silence the part of your brain that says, I look like an idiot when I'm playing a Red Hulk? You probably look like an insane human being.
I don't want to break your bubble, but that's what the money is for.
To silence that part of your brain?
Gone.
And it's an experience he would love for younger people to have.
What would you say to a young actor that's deciding whether to make the plunge into Marvel? You've had a good experience. What would you say?
Read the contract.
I love you, Harrison, and I'm so sorry. Ross's big speech concerns events somehow dispensed with and events somehow never before addressed.
From the disappearance of half of mankind to the emergence of a celestial mass in the Indian Ocean.
Oh my god, we're doing Eternals! We remembered the giant dead god sticking out of the sea, the one that emerged from the center of our planet, the one that died and displeased Arishem the god.
And I will return for judgment.
Well, he's taking his sweet time about it. That was back in 2021. Since then, the sole acknowledgement of the giant dead god sticking out of the Indian Ocean was in a She-Hulk Easter egg. But now we finally remembered it happened. Isn't that swell? I can't wait to see what profound species-altering questions will be raised. What have we learned from this experience? How has mankind been changed by this new knowledge?
Oh, shit. You ever see anything like this?
No, I haven't.
What do you mean, no?
The disappearance of half of mankind is mentioned only to tell us that this is all in the past. We're not doing the blip anymore. We dealt with that in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, alright? Sure, it was used to lecture Americans about race politics in the post-George Floyd era.
You've got to do better, Senator. You've got to step up.
And that series closed with the re-establishment of international borders, which was supposed to be incredibly nasty and evil because refugees are welcome even if they're plotting to commit genocide. If it's no longer an issue, and it's not, it won't be mentioned ever again, then are we to assume that the senator did indeed do better? Did that have any electoral consequences at all? What happened to the Global Repatriation Council? Wasn't the United Nations in de facto command? What happened to that president? Was that president the same president as the president who ended secret invasion by passing an anti-alien act after nearly starting World War III with Russia? President Ritson, I think that was his name. Did Ross beat President Ritson in this election? How does this all connect?
The threats we face show no signs of slowing down, but the only way we can overcome them is together!
As you might have gathered, Marvel movies require quite a bit of homework these days, and much like homework, the punishment is the reward. But like all good teachers, they have absolutely no faith in their victims' intelligence, and so the casual viewer is brought up to speed with clunky exposition wherever possible.
Heard anything from Betty, from my daughter?
No, sir.
Although, well, in this case, fair enough, right? How many people realize they'd have to go back to watch 2008's The Incredible Hulk as preparation for a 2025 Captain America movie? Disney Plus does this thing where it bundles all of the essential films you need to see in advance. It didn't include The Incredible Hulk, because I don't think anybody expected Captain America 4 to be a sequel to 2008's Incredible Hulk, the movie that no one's even sure exists in the MCU. So I got to watch it on the day. I was like, for fuck's sake, I've got an entire another movie. I've just binged all the Captain America ones and the Falcon and the Winter Soldier in preparations. No, I've now got to go back even further and remember who the fuck Betty Ross is. Ross's daughter, who is indeed his daughter, as he will remind us several times, is Arwen. I'd completely forgotten Arwen was in a Marvel movie, and Brave New World assumes this is true of pretty much everybody.
President Ross embraced the theme of togetherness in his acceptance speech, but his past tells a different story, like Captain America. Some question if they can overcome their at times tumultuous history.
In fact, many blamed Ross for the collateral damage, believing it was his relentless pursuit of Banner's Hulk that led to the rampage. It also resulted in the president-elect's estrangement from his daughter, Dr. Betty Ross, Bruce Banner's ex-girlfriend.
That was Lady Newsman reporting for the Exposition News Network. And now for the weather with Sylvester Stewart.
Where it'll be a misty day tomorrow with a droplet density of about 50,000 per spherical inch. That's roughly as if the mist were hugging the ground like an over-affectionate and rather damp dog.
The news in this movie has quite astonishing levels of access. How do they know about the tumultuous relationship between Sam and Ross? Did the events of Civil War make the White House press briefings? Oh yes, by the way, a bunch of Avengers refused to sign the Accords and went rogue, so we threw them in prison, and then they escaped and saved the world from Thanos. It's not impossible that those events were made public, but it's highly unlikely the man who split the Avengers tried to arrest Captain America and left the world vulnerable to a genocidal raisin would go on to have a successful political career. Much the same thing is true of the 2008 Hulk recap segment. Ross was blamed for the absolute carnage brought about by his pursuit of what must now be one of the world's most popular heroes, Bruce Banner. It's a bit like saying Trump got elected despite leveling Harlem in a bid to neutralize Taylor Swift. You and I might be fine with that. Most of America probably wouldn't be. And then, of course, we have to be reminded that his estranged daughter was Bruce Banner's girlfriend, because how else can we be expected to remember who she is? I can't believe the news would find this bit of trivia interesting, because journalists do love their gossip and Bruce Banner is surely famous, but these make for formidable odds for poor old Ross to overcome. And my fuck, it's been 17 years. I'm pretty sure Bruce has moved on since then, even if the news media hasn't. Lady Newsman says Ross managed to shift the narrative though, and that's pretty much all we're going to get on how he got elected. For now, at least. This is all Hulk smash to the face exposition, made necessary because the intro has too much to do. It has to remind us who Ross is, it has to remind us who his daughter is, it has to provide basic setup and context, it has to make very clear that Sam is now Captain America because we're quite insecure on that point, and it also has to establish the two most important dynamics in the movie, Ross versus Sam and Ross versus Betty. It's the kind of thing you can avoid if you seed your setup beats gradually. We don't actually need to know about Ross and his daughter yet because we're going to have another scene later that establishes the same thing. Nor do we particularly need anything about Sam yet because they're going to interact quite a bit later, and because the Avengers do not currently exist. Since we don't know what formal role, if any, Captain America has in the Ross administration, we don't need to front-load everything here. Replace all that shit with more details about Ross's campaign, small things to provide broader context, more natural tie-ins with recent preceding events, and the whole thing would feel both more natural and more useful, as well as telling us more relevant things about Ross's recent past and the state of the world as it is. The film wants us to know that he got a little bit angry at a press press conference that one time, because it considers that to be set up for him getting angry again later in the movie, but it's by far the least interesting snippet of all the information we could be getting about him. We then get a quick shot of a mysterious basement lab prison, and then the title slate, well, that just kind of occurs. I really don't think they knew where to put it. They just threw a dart at the script and went with it. We were lucky we got it before the end credits, given their aim on everything else. I promise I won't keep doing this. Probably, because every single scene in the movie should be changed, and changing them all as we go will keep us here until Avengers Doomsday comes out. But why not cut back to Ross finishing up his big speech instead? Camera behind him, lights and crowd in front of him as he raises his arms in triumph. Since our goal should be to build intrigue gradually and over time, the only ambiguity we really need at this stage is, what kind of president will Ross be? And if you want to tip your hand, using the soundtrack to suggest that something sinister might result from this, that's all you really need. But the reason they don't do that is that this movie has what I will politely call a bespoke approach to intrigue. Conventionally, intrigue rests upon suspicion, upon things you do not know, upon the vague but little evidenced sense that something is amiss. Brave New World, though, well, it doesn't take that approach. When it wants to be intriguing, it flat out tells you that something is amiss and someone is behind it, and it's probably this guy right here, which is why it shows us Dexter's lab with the news report on the TV. It wants us to know that something is amiss and someone is behind it, and he lives here. How very mysterious! It's not fucking mysterious. What the fuck are you doing?
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
Does something feel amiss to you? Do total strangers seem to have an alarming amount of information about your private life? Are you perhaps the President of the United States, keeping an evil super genius in your basement dungeon, but concerned that he might use your private medical records to create bespoke gamma radiation pills that will turn you into Red Hulk at an inconvenient moment?
And now, a word from our sponsor.
If you don't want to be the ridiculous plot of a dumb Marvel film, you should protect your personal data with Aura. It is generally safe to assume that the internet knows more about you than your girlfriend. She doesn't have access to your search history unless you've been very, very careless. Big companies and public sector organizations with terrible security get hacked every day, and your personal information then gets sold on to spammers, scammers, identity thieves, and probably the Chinese. Always use protection, kids. And that's where Aura comes in. Aura is proactive on defense. It identifies data brokers selling your information and opts out on your behalf, thereby reducing spam. It continuously monitors the dark web and alerts you if your personal information is exposed, so you know when you are at risk. And the Aura app includes a VPN with more than 100 virtual locations, so you can post whatever memes you like, even in the UK, in complete confidence that somebody else will get arrested. In addition, Aura will quickly notify you if anyone tries to use your private data to access your credit or bank accounts, and it provides up to $5 million in identity theft insurance lest the worst case scenario arise. You can get a 14-day free trial at aura.com/Little Platoon, more than enough time for Aura to find out whether your private data has been exposed. The link is in the description. Stay safe out there.
Please stand by for further details. We return you now to your regularly scheduled program.
The movie proper begins with Sam and some army people on a mission to rescue hostages and retrieve an important MacGuffin from a sinister group of evilmen. Coincidentally, this is how The Winter Soldier begins. Actual Cap, Nat, and some army people raiding a ship to free some hostages and retrieve an important MacGuffin. What a neat little coincidence that is. The opening action sequence in Winter Soldier is in every way better than this one, of course. It actually plays out like a believable military operation. Stealth is paramount because hostages are involved, so Cap has to quietly-ish take out a bunch of grunts while everybody else gets into position so they can trigger the final strike in unison and prevent the evil terrorists from shooting innocent people in the head.
You have to stop calling them terrorists.
Oh, you're right. I'm so sorry, Sam. So they can prevent misunderstood victims of systemic oppression from shooting innocent people in the head. Clearly, this would all have been avoided had the senators just done better. But this hostage rescue, well, it's not quite as believable as that.
Covert? Really? You must be new. Wait for it.
Why, yes, he just landed on his little human legs while traveling faster than the speed of sound. It's cool though, because his whole suit is made of vibranium. And even though we already know that you can break vibranium if you hit it hard enough, and even though this very movie will show that you can break vibranium if you hit it hard enough, never mind all that. At the moment, Sam is just invulnerable. It's how you drum up tension in your action scenes. Oh, and before you ask, even though Sam just used a sonic boom shockwave as a weapon, the hostages are still safe because nobody inside the building heard him arrive. Fucking Jesus Christ. Besides some generic army types on the plane, Sam's main backup is this chap. His name is Joaquin Torres. He was in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. His role in that show was sexy nerd. He gives filthy degenerates like me something nice to look at, and he hacks information from the interwebs whenever the plot needs to move forward. But in this movie, he is now Falcon. So we have Captain Falcon and we have Falcon. The difference is the color scheme. Isn't that exciting?
Joaquin, he was in Falcon and Winter Soldier. He's new Falcon because he asked for the wings and Sam said, yeah, you can have him.
Which is, like, again, unless I missed a scene in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, his shtick is basically, he's pretty and he's a nerd, and so he hacks into shit while looking pretty. That's his shtick.
He's Tech Falcon. That's his whole thing.
He has a fight scene, kind of, in which he just gets completely trashed in about 5 seconds by one of the super soldiers.
So I don't know how jurisdiction works here, but I don't have to place you under arrest.
Does he have a fight scene at any other point during that show that he wins? No. So naturally, he's the first choice to be given not only a fighting role, but like a highly specified aerial fighting role where he moves at like 5,000 miles an hour.
From Static Shock.
I didn't understand that reference.
It's fine though, you see, because this movie only uses the same actors and nouns as that show, but wherever possible, it just pretends it doesn't exist.
When Disney Plus was announced, we realized there was an opportunity to interweave a cinematic universe with a television universe, which had never been done before. We knew if we could nail it, that's what would make this unique. These characters can continue to be developed in a way that we oftentimes don't have time to do in films, and then launch right back into that feature universe, so that it's truly connected for the first time.
Not a great plan.
Shh. Trump's in the White House now. You're not allowed to tell stories about racism. Yeah, there's a bit of a design problem here. Sam's entire suit is vibranium, at the moment anyway. He actually has a vibranium nanotech helmet thing as well, he just doesn't use it very much. His wings function as a shield, as do the rest of his clothes. He actually doesn't need Cap's shield at all. They gave it to him at the end of Endgame without any idea why at the time, then they used it to try and talk about racism for 6 hours of an appalling TV show, but now they're not interested in doing that anymore. Well, they've managed to make it completely redundant. You generally shouldn't make your hero invincible from head to toe in any situation because it is boring as fuck. The first Avenger knew how to do this. Steve gets winged by a bullet from the Nazi dwarf prince here after he's become a super soldier in order to show that he is still vulnerable. He can still be hurt. He's strong and he's quick, but he's still a mortal man. He needs the shield's protection. What they've done with Captain Falcon though is like putting a vibranium hat on a vibranium hat. He has no need of the shield whatsoever, almost like they should have given it to somebody else. Inside the building, they still haven't heard him coming. In order to establish that Captain Falcon is good people, he insists on going after the hostages even though the very important package he's been sent to retrieve is heading off in another direction. This movie is very insecure about its protagonist, so it manufactures as many opportunities as possible to show how really swell and Steve-like he is.
And Sidewinder, he's the head of Serpent. He's not supposed to be here.
Yeah, this is a meta line, because Gus Fring was added to the movie very late on, and after they'd written out other characters who'd not only been cast, but been shot in their roles as members of Serpent, this movie's generic Hydra equivalent, whose gimmick is that they are all named after snakes. The original version of this movie had a big bad leader of Serpent who was then removed from this cut of the movie, and then they thought, oh shit, no, we still need an actual villain in this movie, another one. So they brought Gus Fring in at short notice, and evidently it was all added so late that nobody thought to check if the line made sense. After all, if you know that Gus isn't supposed to be here, it kind of implies you know where he ought to be, which would be very inconvenient for the head of a criminal organization. Criminals don't tend to share their location on Slack. It's also reflected in the generic lines Gus speaks throughout this movie. He's here to meet the buyer, and he is upset that the buyer hasn't shown up. So he bullies a priest for a bit just to establish that he is bad people, until somebody comes in to inform him that Captain Falcon has arrived. And this comes as a nasty surprise.
And then Sam bursts his way in and once again engages several men in close quarters combat with the shield.
Can we just very quickly, so you would think by now evil people in the MCU would know that it is pointless trying to shoot people wearing vibranium. You've got hostages. Why don't you use the hostages? Because that's the one thing vibranium can't get around, is that you will kill innocent people if you get them.
It's the Superman dilemma is what it is. When your protagonist is invincible, fights are pretty dull, and intelligent villains are forced to make life interesting for the audience by putting the hero in a moral bind, the kind of thing that invincibility can't help with. If the movie wanted to portray Gus and his Slytherins as intelligent villains to be taken seriously, then having them delay Sam by using the hostages from the off would be a pretty neat way to go about that. But they don't. Not really anyway. Most of them just obligingly run at him so he can knock them down. And it's left to a couple of enterprising Slytherins to ad hoc threaten the hostages only after it's far too late for that to be a viable plan. They get taken up the shitter by Redwing.
Ha sido muy valiente.
Hey, I guess he's found time for his Duolingo classes in between his Captain America missions. Isn't he such good people? How? How the fuck did you dodge that? Do you have Jedi reflexes?
I was isolating the potential to wield the Force.
Anyway, remember how in Winter Soldier Cap takes some time out for a one-on-one fight with Batroc before exfiltrating? Well, coincidentally, Sam takes some time out for a one-on-one fight with this large Scandinavian man. There are, as ever, a few key differences. Number 1, Batroc is actually a character and he is leading the team of terrorists.
You have to stop calling him.
I mean, he's leading the team of systematically oppressed people, so he has a particular reason to be there. Whereas this guy, well, he's just a bit of a mini-boss. I don't even know what his name is. Number 2, Cap putting the shield down for the fight is designed to prove that he's more than just the weapon he holds. He still has the advantage of his super serum, but he makes the fight as fair as possible. Sam putting the shield aside for this fight is still completely invulnerable, so it's not quite the same. Number 3, Sam choosing not to use any of his tools to end this fight as quickly as possible is what allows Gus Fring to escape, meaning he's voluntarily let an incredibly important lead go in order that he cannot prove a point the writers aren't even sure is a point to begin with. They're just doing it because, like poetry, it rhymes, and also is gay. There's yet another consideration too. The very important package is being whisked away on motorbikes at this present moment, and Sam has to be convinced to let Torres put on his Falcon suit and go take it out. But we will learn later that Torres hasn't even been trained in the basics, making this a pretty big risk. So, for the sake of a callback, the movie has Sam let an incredibly important Slytherin-oppressed person slither away. He's risked losing the very important package he has been sent to retrieve, and he's risked the life of his untrained sidekick. And they call him Captain America. Oh, speaking of Cap, remember his catchphrase?
I can do this all day. I can do this all day. I can do this all day.
I can do this all day.
Yeah, I know.
These writers tried to come up with a Captain Falcon version of that line.
You need a minute?
Nope, let's get this over with. I got shit to do today.
And then they gave up. The as yet untrained, unready Joaquin Torres, what are we even calling him, by the way? Lieutenant Falcon? Captain Chick? Falcon 2? Twink Eagle? I don't even know. Twink Eagle, we'll go with that. Twink Eagle takes out the fleeing bikers and he retrieves the package.
Damn. Nobody saw that.
Yeah, this is him. This is how he is, all the way through the movie. It's called characterization. Fucking no, it's not. Two things. A, his suit looks awful and his helmet is embarrassing. He looks much better with fewer clothes on.
Gay.
His suit is also made of awful, in that it is standard issue non-vibranium metal, which I encourage you to keep in mind, because it becomes very relevant later. But most pressingly, B. If you have an untrained sidekick character, and you have basic self-respect as a writer, you want that character to go on an arc. He should try, he should fail, he should be rebuked, he should pull through, he should succeed. This scene is set up for that sort of thing to happen. Captain Falcon is busy, he's under-stressed, he's having to take too much on, he's having to do it all on his own. His amateur buddy has heart exceeding what we are told later is his skill level. So, why not have him try this mission, fail at this mission, get bailed out, and then chastised by the experienced hero, leaving him with something to prove? In short, why not make him a character?
Sam, package is secured.
Oh, never mind then.
I'll add your star to my collection.
Okay, calm down, General Grievous. There's a problem here. This movie mostly proceeds as though Sam's entire suit is made of vibranium. This has to be the case if the crazy stunts he performs, the hits he tanks, and the moves he pulls off are to be just totally unbelievable. The dude landed on his legs at the speed of sound. And yet, here he is, getting sliced by a boring old knife. So, what are we running with here, movie? Is the suit made of vibranium or isn't it? Because if it isn't, then he should be a splat. There is a theory that one of the many rough cuts of this movie, which had an entirely different cast of characters even, we've seen the set photos, proceeded rather differently. This movie is soon to introduce us to Adamantium, which it states is very much better than vibranium. The Serpent Society is here because they've stolen some adamantium from the Japanese. Yeah, don't worry, this will all become unclear later. And in an earlier version of the movie, they had perhaps already managed to make use of it. This knife was, perhaps, an adamantium knife, which explains how it's able to slice through Sam's vibranium armor, and why he seems to be shocked at this fact. But then the test screenings polled lower than Hanukkah does in Mecca, and they deleted this beat from the movie at some stage, while keeping the scene that established it. That is my pet theory, though there is another theory, which states that it makes no sense because the writers suffer from terminal incompetence, but it's impossible to say for sure which is the case, because we know for a fact that so many versions of this movie were in fact made. Anyway, Sam gets the better of nameless henchmen, and the movie once again tries to convince us that he really, really is Captain America. Meanwhile, Ross is laying flowers at his wife's grave. He being the only character in this movie with anything approaching an arc, he exposits point A for us in order that we can appreciate point Z when it arrives later.
Keep your face always to the sunshine, and the shadows will fall behind you. The quote was Betty's idea.
She's still not speaking with you?
She doesn't believe I've changed.
Excellent! The Captain America movie has established its central question, and the closest thing it gets to a theme. Has President Ross from the 2008 Hulk movie changed since the 2008 Hulk movie? I will point out he's had 17 years at least in which to change. It's quite possibly longer because I believe the MCU is now several years ahead of our real-world timeline. And I'm pretty sure he has changed at least once during that time frame. From the antagonistic general who wanted to revive and weaponize a super soldier program, he became a Secretary of State who wanted to place the Avengers under United Nations jurisdiction. And feels like a noteworthy shift of some sort took place there, and now he's run for and been elected president under the slogan Together, preaching the value of togetherness. Again, feels like a shift of some sort has taken place. His dilemma here is so generic, it's actually straining against continuity. Ross also tells us that his first 100 days is almost up, and this treaty he's working on is going to define him. He is very, very fond of his treaty. He bangs on about it a lot. It is comically absurd, but we will come to that shortly. But first 100 days, you say? Well, it sure would be nice to know what else he's been working on. What else is going on in the world? What else afflicts his nation? I wonder if we'll get any more information about that. Rhetorically, I wonder it all rhetorically. He gets a call informing him that Captain Falcon's team completed its mission, which is our cue to jump back to Captain Falcon himself. Remember how in Winter Soldier it became clear that the opening hostage rescue wasn't all it appeared to be? That it had all been arranged by somebody with an ulterior motive? That a conspiracy was afoot?
It's a weird place for a handoff, right? You think the buyer ever intended on showing up?
You think Serpent got played?
What are they saying?
Same thing. Contract was anonymous.
Let us know you get a trace on Sidewinder.
Gee, what a funny coincidence. And yes, by the way, it's another instance of the film's bespoke approach to intrigue. We want the audience to suspect that something strange might be happening here, so we tell the audience that something strange is definitely happening here, and the music screams that something strange is happening here. Nor does it make a huge amount of sense. The point, as will become clear later, is that the Serpent Society was contacted and then used by the buyer. They were tools of, not parties to, his conspiracy. That it was objectively a strange place for a handoff with an open perimeter or whatever the fuck is mentioned so that we, the audience, know something is strange about it, but the Serpent Society should also have thought there was something strange about it. Why would they leave their perimeter wide open for a trade with a guy they don't know is betraying them? This is pretty basic mystery writing stuff. Your need as a writer for an air of mystery and conspiracy doesn't override your character's basic logic, intelligence, and integrity. The handover they thought they were taking part in concerns perhaps the most important material on the face of the earth. No, they're not leaving their fucking perimeter wide open. Anyway, Eagle Twink turns up for some banter and to push the plot forward. He asks Sam to teach him his aerial kick thing.
In no way are you ready for that. But I got a guy who'll teach you the fundamentals from the ground up.
2 seconds. Yeah.
Why would you give him a highly specialized suit for an incredibly dangerous mission that could kill him in a million different ways if he still needs to be taught the fundamentals from the ground up? Are you fucking mad? In The Winter Soldier, Sam himself was introduced as a former pararescue man from the US Air Force. He was trained. He was a specialist. He lost a wingman in Afghanistan because the types of missions he goes on, the types of missions that involve these Falcon suits, are incredibly risky to pull off. Fuck it, he saw Rhodey fall out of the sky and get paralyzed for life. I refuse to believe that Sam would nonchalantly give that suit to an untrained twink. You might damage his beautiful teeth, you careless fuck. You could at least have given him your spare vibranium suit. But off they go to the gym run by the one, the only, Isaiah Bradley. If you were sensible and you skipped The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Isaiah Bradley is that show's parable about the evil history of American racism. A black man given super soldier serum, used for military missions, then imprisoned because racist whitey couldn't abide the thought of a black super soldier. He was then experimented on for 50 years. Then his death was faked, and he was released to live as an embittered private citizen prevented from sharing his story with the world.
They were worried my story might get out, so they erased me. But they've been doing that for 500 years. They will never let a black man be Captain America. And even if they did, no self-respecting black man would ever want to be.
We will not relitigate the many abominations of that show. Much, maybe a bit, later. But after Sam took over as Captain America and the Senators learned to do better, Isaiah Bradley was officially restored to history, with a statue placed in the big Captain America Museum exhibit.
Your missions in Korea are legendary. I mean, a lot's changed in the world. We could have used another super soldier.
The United States government threw me in prison for 30 years.
Makes sense. That sucks.
Or not? Did the museum exhibit restoring him to history also erase his history? Is this racism again? Also, yeah, known public super soldier has a gym and there aren't queues around the block to train with him, interview him, get autographs with him. Is this racism again? The nominal point of coming here was to get Eagle Twink some training that he needs before he's allowed to do the sorts of missions he has just done. But he receives no such training. Instead, Captain Falcon plays a quick game in which he must grab 3 flags from Captain Race Allegory's belt while dodging the huge punching bag he is awkwardly swinging around. I will note that Eagle Twink does appear to be glistening in some of these shots, which is either just his natural state of beauteous being, or it's indicative of a cut training scene. I'm not complaining, I'm just noticing. Captain Falcon gets 2 out of 3, but then is defeated by what appears to be a bit of dodgy editing. Apparently he got hit in this last exchange, but you're just going to have to take it on faith. Then Eagle Twink's training session that has been taken by Captain Falcon instead is interrupted by a phone call.
Yeah, I'll hold for the president.
Normally, a line like that tees up an important scene to follow, because phone calls from POTUS are useful plot devices. They can carry a lot of pre-built weight and importance into a scene. Do you want to change tack, change tone, change focus, interrupt a dead-end scene with new information? Well, the president's on line 1. But Brave New World breaks with this convention. That phone call takes place off-screen while Eagle Twink quips about old man Captain Race Allegory being old and so useless with his phone because he is old.
You still got the...
No, I don't...
Plastic on. Oh, you want me to make the text bigger? So you could read it?
That is called a practical joke.
This is actually more important than the phone call with the actual President of the United States, because the phone and Eagle Twink's interest in it will be relevant again shortly. The phone call itself is cut, and we pick up in the next room with Captain Race Allegory being very pissed off.
They will never let a black man.
No, I'm gonna stop you there. We're not doing that again. I'm sure the movie wanted to, and there's probably a finished version of this movie that did. I'm pretty sure all the obvious ADR in this version of the movie deleted every instance of the words black man from the script, which was the bare minimum right decision to give the film as much credit as it's due. It's just a shame they couldn't fill the void with anything of substance. But in this brave new post-racial world of the MCU, Captain Race Allegory's complaint is not that the country is bad and racist, and so no self-respecting black man should want to be Captain America. Oh no, his new complaint is much more personal than that. He doesn't want Captain America working for President Ford too, because he has a personal grudge against President Ford too. Captain Race Allegory thinks that President Ford too is a bad man, not that the country he rules is a bad country.
President of the country who stole your life?
It's not just that. We're talking about Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross.
Yeah, that screeching sound you hear, that's ferrets reversing at high speed. Captain Falcon puts on his best as you know face and says, well, as you know, Ross imprisoned me and my friends and he hounded me for years.
Look, I know Isaiah firsthand. Remember, Ross threw me in the raft. Hounded me, Steve, and Natasha for years.
So why are you working for him?
What's this? An MCU movie using past character relationships to define the central conflict in this latest movie? That sounds too good to be true. And it is.
You see what's going on out there? The country is lost. Now standing next to the president, even if it's Ross, it gives people hope.
How? How is the country lost? What's going wrong? What are we referring to here? Is it the consequences of the blip, the Skrull infiltration, the giant dead guard sticking out of the ocean, rogue super soldier rebels, Kingpin running for New York mayor, incursions from the multiverse, a brewing war with the Aztecs, are the Wakandans being dicks again? Have the Dora the Explorers caused a major international incident with their peculiar understanding of jurisdiction?
The Dora Milaje have jurisdiction wherever the Dora Milaje find themselves to be.
Is it any of the things Marvel has spent hundreds of millions of dollars setting up over the past few years? The answer is to be found in one of the discarded cuts of this movie. It's certainly not in this cut. Something tells me we'll have more to say about all this a little bit later.
I have a friend who works in the White House. She'll let me know if Ross starts acting out of turn.
Did Rhodey have a sex change? Is Rhodey a woman now? Because, you know, we already have well-established characters to fill roles like this, and a minute ago you did want to give the impression you were building on existing relationships. Hell, Rhodey's in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Or, wait, no, was that the Skrull version of... Oh, fuck it, it's best not to ask. Captain Falcon says he knows that Ross will never change, which seems both silly and unkind, and which you'd think might act against his next decision. For he wants to go to the White House, confer the symbolic legitimacy of Captain America on a man he's just told us was bad and will never change, but that this will all be fine because he's insisted on bringing Captain Race Allegory as his +1. At long last, a black man gets to go to the White House. As though presidents, senators, and congressmen wouldn't have been falling over themselves to bring the newly rediscovered first black Captain America to the White House at every opportunity. If this were the real world, Captain Race Allegory would literally have to fumigate Al Sharpton out of his living room for fuck's sake. Captain Falcon says it would mean a lot to him if Captain Race Allegory agrees to come. Pretty insensitive of you, Sam. You didn't have your whole life stolen from you by racists. You happily served in the Air Force and then the Avengers, and you were given the symbolic shield of America, and you were fine with all of this until that brief moment when you weren't sure your country deserved you. But we've moved on from all of that.
See, Isaiah, this is what I'm talking about. Now you're going to the White House.
And so has everybody else. Now, this limo ride is naturally quiet space that could be used to flesh out the world state some more. It's a scene where characters have nothing to do but talk to each other, and the limo is driving through all this thematically useful mise-en-scène. It's en route to the White House. We were just told that the country is lost, that everything's a mess. Our characters have doubts about what they're doing, about the president's intentions, about whether he's to be trusted. This movie is supposed to be a kind of political, psychological thriller, so what do they talk about?
They sent us a limo, man. What? Hey, we look good. Yeah. What? Old school, you got your smell good on? Yeah.
They arrive at the White House. Here again, the bespoke approach to intrigue. Captain Falcon, Eagle Twink, and Captain Race Allegory take selfies in the entrance hall. But oh, the guy in Dexter's lab from earlier, he's watching them on camera. I wonder if something suspicious is going on that he might be behind. In the White House, Captain Falcon is invited for a personal meeting with Ross. Oh look, yeah, Rhodey is a woman now. I'm glad he's found himself.
Still getting used to the new look. Yeah. Lose the mustache or lose the election.
I can't believe I'm saying this about a mustache, but keep this in mind, it'll be relevant later. President Ross thanks Captain Falcon for his help in Mexico. He says that retrieving the canister might have saved his treaty. Or, wait, no, I'm sorry.
Retrieving that canister might just have saved this treaty.
It's easy doing a Harrison Ford impression, you just have to pretend your vocal cords have prolapsed. Ross tells Captain Falcon that they've not always agreed on how much freedom enhanced individuals deserve. Sam is not an enhanced individual, he just has an enhanced suit, and I think the movie sometimes forgets this, but regardless, Ross says that Captain Falcon's recent actions have proven to him that it is time to reconsider.
Which is why I want you, Captain America, to help me rebuild the Avengers.
Couple of things. The Sokovia Accords have already been annulled. We know this because fucking She-Hulk told us as much. Since Civil War, enhanced individuals acting without government oversight have saved the world from Thanos, returned half of humanity from the blip, saved the multiverse from Wanda, saved the multiverse from Kang with a bit of help from our friends at the New York Police Department, saved the children of New Asgard from Gore the God Butcher, saved the Earth from the giant dead god in the sea, prevented a war between Wakanda and the Aztec wetback, saved the Earth from Dormammu, prevented a multiversal incursion in No Way Home, ended a terrorist super soldier threat, and I could continue. But you see, Captain Falcon has just rescued a small container from some jobbing, oppressed people, so now is the time to reconsider the Sokovia Accords that are already obsolete. And Captain Falcon did this as part of a US military team using government intelligence, tech, and following government orders, so he wasn't even acting independently, so why is this the excuse for Ross to change his mind? The music tells us that there may be something suspicious going on here.
Well, with all due respect, sir, when you passed the Sokovia Accords, you tore the Avengers apart. Why the change of heart?
But the movie doesn't show us anybody suspiciously watching from behind the scenes, and it never really comes up again, so it's not. It is a genuine, if a very short-lived suggestion from President Russ, one that probably played a much more prominent role in an earlier version of the movie, but is a mere relic in this one. Ross's reasoning is that he represents, and I quote, all Americans now, including the half of them who only exist because of the Avengers. I remind you, strange creatures in the audience, that Ross represented the United Nations when he pressed for the Sokovia Accords, and he was secretary to a president of the United States who also, presumably, fancied that he represented all Americans, so I don't really think his reasoning holds here. If he really means this, then there are inevitably a few questions that arise. Where is Nick Fury? Wouldn't he be the first person you ask when it comes to reforming the Avengers? We last saw him up on that Saber space station in the Marvels, and there he was already gathering intel on the likes of Kate Bishop and Kamala Khan. That movie ended with young Kamala approaching young Kate and telling her that she's putting together a team. Does Saber not share information with the rest of the US government? Did the writers of the Marvels not share information with the writers of Captain America Brave New World?
And when we disagree on how to manage a situation, what happens then? Figure it out together.
I give it about 3 minutes before this falls apart. Ross asks Captain Falcon to think about it, and then he wanders off to chat with the president of... Japan. The Japanese play quite an important role in this movie because Disney doesn't like upsetting the Chinese. How many languages do you speak, Captain Falcon? English, obviously. Earlier, Spanish. Now, Japanese. And I'm pretty sure he spoke Arabic in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which, before you ask, is not the primary or even the secondary language spoken in Afghanistan where he served, so fuck knows where he picked that up from. He seems to pick up languages faster than DiCaprio picks up suspiciously young women. They go into a meeting room for Ross's big speech to the assembled world leaders.
He asked me to restart the Avengers. It's huge, man. I don't know. We'd have to work for him.
That's actually not what he said, but I guess it's always sensible to assume politicians don't mean what they say. Maybe it's what he said in a different version of the movie and you just forgot to get rid of this line.
You and I haven't always agreed in the past, but I want to make another run at making Captain America an official military position.
Ross stands up and gives his big speech. This is where we learn what his treaty and so his whole administration is all about.
When the celestial mass emerged in the Indian Ocean.
Look at it, fucking look at it. It's a giant dead god with 6 fucking eyes poking out of the Earth's crust. You called it a celestial mass. Do you know what celestials are? How is this the first time we're dealing with this? Oh, fuck it, better late than never.
Countries rushed in to claim it as their own.
Did they? They squabbled over it. Like it's a small island that just popped up above the sea? It has a head. It has hands.
What was found inside that island is nothing short of the discovery of the millennium.
No, the island is the discovery of the millennium. Doesn't what it is, why it is, and where it came from rank a little bit higher than what we can mine from it? I think if an enormous stone Jesus popped out of the ocean, we'd be a bit more interested in the why of it than, oh, hey, it has some bone marrow.
Its potential applications in tech, in defense, are immeasurable.
And they'll mean nothing if big old Arishem comes back and sentences us all to death, but I guess nobody's ready for that conversation.
It's even more indestructible than vibranium. And it's not controlled by an isolationist nation.
Well, that's one way of describing a racist ethno-state, but there are many, many problems, and we haven't even learned what this new adamantium is called. Oh, shit.
I present to you Adamantium.
I'm so sorry, President Ford. I Richard Nixon all over your big reveal. But I do have to stop you here. If this is the big millennium-defining discovery, and countries have been wrestling over the Celestial for many years, why is it presented here like it's a brand new thing? Did every single country keep all of this a secret from everybody? Did they keep it secret from all the writers of earlier movies and shows as well? Also, if adamantium is this important, especially since it provides an alternative to to Wakandan-controlled vibranium, then why aren't the Wakandans in this movie? Don't you think they'd have a powerful interest in this new thing? It's sticking out of the ocean. The Wakandans have an alliance with the Seamen, which leads us to also, Wakanda Forever established that there were other vibranium deposits outside Wakandan territory, and you can find them with nothing more complex than a high school science project. Also, you just finished chatting with Captain Falcon, whose entire suit is made of vibranium. Bucky's arm is made of vibranium. Cap's shield is made of vibranium. Vibranium was stolen from Wakanda in Age of Ultron. This stuff does get out. It's not totally unavailable. And besides, Wakanda opened up at the end of Black Panther. It was still kind of open at the end of Wakanda Forever, albeit George Floyd had died by then, so they were much more skeptical of the white man. But what does it say about this magically wonderful kingdom that they still only hand out their magically wonderful technology to people based on what color they are? Is this racism? Also, why is it only America, Japan, France, and India who seem to be involved in this adamantium treaty? I don't see why the French, on the strength of one small island that doesn't hate them enough to go independent, should outrank the Australians, the Saudis, the bloody Wakandans, the wanking British. We have islands there too, you know. They're better than the French ones. Anyway, this, it turns out, is what Captain Falcon retrieved from the oppressed people at the beginning of the movie. The first and only refined adamantium sample. Ross says that what happens next will determine how history will judge them. I'm pretty sure that will be Arishem, actually. Arishem the judge, clues in the name. And then he reveals what his treaty is all about.
If we ratify this treaty, together we can produce enough adamantium to fairly and equitably distribute it around the world.
Right, okay, right. Well, you see, the thing is that earlier you said...
What was found inside that island is nothing short of the discovery of the millennium. Its potential applications in tech, in medicine, in defense are immeasurable.
Now, I am not saying we should be all ethno-nationalist about it, because we're not the Wakandans, we're supposed to be better than that. But you don't fairly and equitably distribute national security assets with the goddamn French, alright? I mean, to say nothing of the Chinese, the Cubans, the North Koreans. And you know what? I'm willing to bet the earlier versions of this movie were less than this. There are lines in this version of the movie that suggest that earlier versions were less than this. In fact, I'm pretty sure what's happened is that they took a movie in which Americans were being very bad about adamantium, and by bad I mean strategically sensible and wanting it for themselves, and they changed it to make it more acceptable in a political climate the writers and the studio don't understand anymore. I guess what I'm saying is that this version of the movie, not the ones that got the bad test scores, this might be the worst version of the movie. In their pursuit of great, they failed to not be shit. Anyway, a strange noise interrupts President Ross's speech at this moment, and Captain Race Allegory goes rogue. Yeah, don't worry, he does miss for a reason. You should worry about the reason instead, because that's where the problem really lies. A chaotic fight breaks out in which it's revealed that several more security personnel have also gone rogue. Some of them get taken out by this small child. This is Ruth Bat-Seraph. Bat-Seraph what? Ruth Bat-Seraph. Probably better known as Sabra, the Israeli Mossad mutant superhero, who ends up being none of these things in this movie because the MCU is not currently ready for mutants. In the current politically tense environment, mutants are just controversial at the moment, you see, given recent events. We can't mention that they're mutants. In the ensuing chaos, Captain Falcon prevents Lady Midget from shooting Captain Race Allegory as he runs off. The rest of the rogue agents cause a bit of a mess, but do pretty much no damage, which is supposed to be deliberate? Yeah, an awful lot is riding on the sinister villain's evil plan. It is quite obviously a false flag operation, but the why of it? Well, that's gonna require a big old brain to figure that out. Wink. Wink. Captain Race Allegory has a surprisingly easy job running out of the White House because the editors are on his team. He runs out into some sort of park, but oh dear, he's surrounded. You're not just gonna teleport to a new location? Because we just saw you do that. I figured it was one of your powers, or did the editors get swatted? This allows Captain Falcon to catch up to him, but by the time he does, Captain Race Allegory has lost all memory of his recent actions. He doesn't know how he got here. He doesn't know what's gone down. For all intents and purposes, he's just minding his own business in a park, and suddenly he's surrounded by the feds. Is this racism? Mighty convenient that the mind control thing just wears off with no external stimuli the moment before a double agent gets captured. But convenience is this film's entire mechanic, so don't expect any of this to get any clearer by the end. I know we're stealing a lot of stuff from The Winter Soldier and also from Civil War, but what we're absolutely not stealing is quality. This movie is the equivalent of breaking into a store and stealing fucking Whatsits. Do y'all have Whatsits in the States? They're like those polystyrene packing blocks, but with a light sprinkling of cheese dust on them. That is this movie. Speaking of Civil War though, coincidentally, we now have a mind-controlled super soldier who strikes a major government function, gets captured by what the movie calls Captain America, and doesn't remember his actions. Neat. I wonder what else we'll steal. I mean, what else we'll... Coincidence.
Watch my suit, please! Watch my suit!
If this seems dumb or funny, blame the stupid limo scene. This is actually supposed to be a painful moment. You might have missed it, or you might have forgotten it because it only got a single mention, but the reason Captain Race Allegory cares about his suit in this scene is that he got married in it. His wife is dead, and in a competently written movie, this would tell us that Captain Race Allegory is a simple, innocent, and really quite kind man who's had an impossibly hard life, and so who clings to these small vestiges of happier times. The problem is that since we were told he got married in the suit, we've had this.
For real? And why you always wearing that ratty-ass sweatsuit?
And then we've had this.
I told you I was gonna get you out of those sweats. Look at you now, man.
And that's pretty much it. If you want his attachment to the suit, and so to his wife, to be played straight and serious, with emotional maturity, you can't make it a comedic bit in every interstitial mention. It's doubly annoying because when you compare the tone of the early trailers to the tone of this movie, it becomes pretty apparent that the original cut of the movie took itself more seriously than this. It's one of the many things that makes you suspect that we got the worst version of this film. And if it seems like an insane nitpick to focus on a single line about a suit, well, consider that it's one of only 2 or 3 at most character beats we've actually had so far in the movie. Sacrificing characters for comedy is one of modern Marvel's meta problems. They really need to stop doing this. Anyhow, sometime later...
I can't let you win.
Say, remember this line from the trailer?
I can't trust anyone.
That line doesn't make it into the film. There should be a pervasive sense of paranoia given the setup. A bunch of people, including members of the Secret Service, have just been mind-controlled by an unknown guy via unknown means. That trailer suggested the movie would lean into this, which is, after all, a basic ingredient in the kind of genre piece we are aiming at here. Think Manchurian Candidate, 3 Days of the Condor, Marathon Man. Your friends could be your enemies. Nothing and nowhere is safe. You should trust no one. So no, you can't just let random guys waltz into the president's secure bunker. No, you shouldn't be holding big meetings surrounded by people who might themselves be compromised. Everybody should fear everybody. The president should be secluded. At the very least, this should be the subject of a conversation. But no, I guess it's fine. Ross orders everybody out except for Captain Falcon and Lady Midget, who is Ross's security advisor. The way this is shot, the way the music plays, the audience is supposed to wonder if she might be in on it. Looks pretty shifty, is tiny, you know what midgets are like, has a weird foreign name, but at no point in the movie does anybody in the movie share the audience's suspicions, and basically all of Lady Midget's scenes were cut, so even the audience is allowed to forget that there is anything even potentially untoward about her. Lady Midget confirms that there were 5 shooters, including Secret Service and military, making for a coordinated terrorist attack. She also suggests that the weird song that played before the shooting might have something to do with it. She doesn't mention that it's at all odd for a coordinated terrorist attack involving members of the military, the Secret Service, and an actual super soldier should result in 0 fatalities. Hey, anyone considered checking CCTV yet? Because, you know, if you checked CCTV, you'd know how the mind control thing was triggered already. Look, you'd see Captain Race Allegory pulling his shots even. You'd see it was all a ruse. Maybe one of you might have a history of working with a guy, a super genius, who's capable of orchestrating all of this. Some big brain boyo with a motive. Hey, Ross, anybody come to mind?
Let me investigate.
You think you're a little too close to this?
Sir, your inner circle's been compromised. There's possibility of another attack now.
And what exactly do you have to offer that our entire intelligence and defense apparatus can?
You just told us that the attack involved Secret Service and military. Maybe he offers not being brain-fucked by an evil brainiac. Though, to be fair, you shouldn't be making that assumption either.
Consider the optics. Captain America conducts a personal investigation.
Yes, why not? I mean, you invited him to the White House, you asked him to reform the Avengers precisely because the optics of having Captain America on your team are really, really good. I know it was more than 5 minutes ago, but the reasoning's still sound.
Of a friend who tried to assassinate the president?
Yeah, but you don't have to tell people that. You're the US government. If you don't know how to lie to the American people, you have no business being president.
Isaiah sacrificed everything for this country. He's a soldier, a patriot.
Captain Falcon knows how to lie because absolutely none of that's true. The problem is everybody already knows that none of that's true. The whole point of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier is that Captain Race Allegory hated the country for what it did to him, and the writers clearly thought he had a point. Being locked up and experimented on for 30 years rather stretches the meaning of sacrificed everything for his country.
He had every reason. Bradley was in prison for rescuing his own man, experimented on for 30 years. The things done to him are enough to make anyone snap.
Yeah, like she said, I like Bat-Seraph. She has her head screwed on to a tiny body. Having invited Captain Falcon to reform the Avengers more than 5 minutes ago, Ross has, of course, forgotten.
You shouldn't even be in these situations. You're not Steve Rogers.
This is why you shouldn't elect demented 80-year-olds to be president. He hasn't just forgotten what he said 5 minutes ago, he's also forgotten that his most recent interactions with Steve Rogers were hunting him down and arresting all of his friends because he wouldn't sign the Sokovia Accords. Why is Russ making unfavorable comparisons with the guy who broke a bunch of rogue superheroes out of fucking Azkaban? Could this just be an incredibly forced attempt to drive a wedge between them? Something that'll send Sam off on his own investigation that will probably, I don't know, lead somewhere crazy, like a remote military facility with a secret lift and a crazy science guy in the basement. Well, that would be a pretty remarkable coincidence. Of course, a smarter film like The Winter Soldier, and yeah, that is all relative, well, a smarter film would have had Captain Falcon be accused of complicity in the attack and forced to go on the run. Maybe President Ford is tricked into doing it, or maybe he's in on the crime, but this would force Sam to be Sam, not Captain Falcon, giving him a good reason not to use his impregnable tech and compelling him to rely on his wits and his human faculties. This would in turn enable the film to focus on the man and not the action figure, while also providing opportunities for him to lament not taking the super soldier serum in a context that makes sense. I am aware that this would involve more copying from the Winter Soldier, but since we're doing a lot of that anyway, we could at least try to copy the best bits. Anyway, Ross tells Lady Midget to put this thing to bed so it doesn't damage his precious treaty any further, and Captain Falcon is basically fired.
I'm done.
You're done.
Yeah, that's kind of it. Please check your badge, your gun, and your vibranium angel wings in at the gate on your way out, and enjoy life on the dole.
This is politics.
So you better wise up, son.
Since you mention wising up, you're not just going to let him walk out, are you? Ross, you pushed for the Sokovia Accords. You're the guy who would rather stick superheroes in jail than let them be independent. You're in a highly sensitive situation. For all you know, Captain Falcon is complicit in the attack. And even if you don't suspect him for some reason, you just got done telling us that you can't risk any further damage to your treaty. So, arrest him and impound his gear. No, don't just let him walk out of the room. God knows what he'll do next. Via some horrific ADR.
Ross is on his own side. He always has been.
You called him a racist old white guy, didn't you? You called him a racist and it tested badly, so they deleted it. Via this horrific ADR, Captain Falcon leaves Ross popping his pills, which nobody is going to check because, you know, it's not like there are supervillains hacking minds or anything. The president's private drug stash is obviously above suspicion. And then Captain Falcon just waltzes into prison to visit Captain Race Allegory. This is why you should have arrested him, you walking lump of aged milk.
The nation remains on high alert. The Justice Department has signaled a death penalty case will be pursued against Isaiah Bradley.
Do I hear the tick-tock of a ticking clock? How long do people spend on death row these days anyway? A decade or more? Huh. Well, that's no good, because there's only like an hour left of the movie. Can we maybe expedite this by shifting him to a particularly racist court in Alabama somewhere? Picking the right court would be very important, since being on death row, Captain Race Allegory would presumably have a chance to defend himself. A less racist court might find it relevant that he was imprisoned and experimented on by the government for 30 years. They might look into what those experiments were. They might even get around to asking who's been working on those experiments. It might end up being like the impact of Watergate on the last Ford administration. No, I really don't think they thought this through. Ross cannot afford for any of this shit to get out.
I could be court-martialed for this. I appreciate it, Bill. Yes, sir.
Well, then you probably shouldn't have let him in through the front door and personally escorted him to the cell of a man who just tried to assassinate the president, should you? Now, it has been at least 3 minutes since our last coincidence, so it's time for another one.
What in the world happened to make you shoot at the president?
I don't know.
You gotta give me more than I don't know.
That sounds mighty familiar.
Who was he?
I don't know.
People are dead. The bombing, the setup, the doctor did all that just to get 10 minutes with you. I need you to do better than I don't know.
I will say, though, taking a rare opportunity to praise this film, Captain Race Allegory's actor, Carl Lumbly, is good. He's really good. By some distance, he is the best actor in the movie. He was good, too, in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. He does that barely concealed mix of grief and rage incredibly well. We know from production shots that he was supposed to have a full-on super-suited role in an earlier version of the movie, but sadly, and this time I mean it, this is one of his last scenes in Brave New World. They stuck him in a cell and they left him there so less interesting characters and less talented actors could tell a less interesting story. Ah, God. Excellent work, guys. Well done.
There ain't no escaping from me this time. I'm gonna die in here.
No, you're not.
No, I imagine they carry out the death sentence in a different room.
I'm gonna get you out.
Or that, sure. It's quite easy breaking people out of high-security prisons. We know this because The Falcon and the Winter Soldier has a whole prison escape sequence in which Bucky explains it's as simple as baiting prisoners into killing each other to cause a distraction. Oh, speaking of Bucky, I assume you'll be calling him immediately Captain Falcon. If you've got an amnesiac super soldier being mind-controlled into committing terrorist acts, Bucky really is the one person you should be speaking to. Hell, the government should be bringing him in to advise, or arresting him as a suspect. Either way, someone go fetch Bucky already.
Sergeant Payumo,
Get me a copy of the conversation.
Yeah, so now we already know that Lady Midget isn't in on it. It's pretty much her second scene in the movie, and she's already been ruled out as a nefarious actor, despite her first scene in the movie being accompanied by suspicious music. She's here tailing Captain Falcon and listening to his conversation with Captain Race Allegory because she's trying to get to the truth and she views him as a suspect, meaning that this is obviously a genuine investigation, so there is no misdirect. There is no switch or rug pull coming where she is concerned.
I wanted very controlled, composed images because that was the tone of this film as a paranoid thriller.
Yeah. Sure, and I do appreciate the control and the composition and the images, but what I'm not detecting much of is any paranoia or thrill in this paranoid thriller. Did Kevin Feige make you cut out all of the paranoia and the thrills? Eagle Twink has, in the meantime, hacked into the White House CCTV system because it's just that easy, and he spotted that Captain Race Allegory's phone was acting strange shortly before he was activated. It flashed at him, and while this could just be an old man trying to take a selfie, it could also be some sort of trigger mechanism. It also happened to the other shooters. Lady Midget also spots this, and she also thinks it's a bit odd, as indeed it is. But you really shouldn't get very invested in the what, the how, or the why of it, because very little of that will ever make sense in this movie. And indeed, the movie itself will completely ditch the flashing lights part of the brain hack mechanism later, nor does it actually function as evidence that directs our hero's investigation. It suggests that somebody hacked into Captain Race Allegory's mind, but Captain Falcon already suspects that, and it doesn't actually lead him anywhere. It shows Lady Midget that something suspicious is going on, but she too already knows that something suspicious is going on, and it doesn't lead her anywhere either, because she'll be told where to go by the president later. It shows the audience that something suspicious is going on, but we already know that because we've already had the audio cue and all of the suspicious music. There might once have been a version of the movie where this part of the investigation was structurally important, but it's structurally redundant in this version of the film, which is just waiting for Giancarlo Expositiono to stupidly give Captain Falcon his next proper lead. You might then think that this beat is only here because the movie thinks we've not had enough intrigue and suspicion, but it's also not confident that this beat is enough intrigue and suspicion either, so then we get President Ross making a phone call.
Morgan Cooper, Ross here. The prisoner, he's secure?
I can confirm the prisoner is in his cell. I'm looking at him right now, sir.
Thank you, Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Gee, I wonder if something suspicious might be going on in Dexter's lab again. I wonder if this Dr. Cooper might be being mind-controlled as well. I can't put my finger on why I wonder these things. Maybe it has something to do with the scene practically screaming, "Something suspicious is going on here!" Which, by the way, is a massive problem, since if it's this obvious to us, it should be at least as obvious to President Ross, given this is his Dexter's lab. As will become clear later, he knows full well who's down there and what he's capable of. If he feels the need to check up on him now that mind-controlled terrorists have seemingly tried to JF kill him, then he should not be phoning a guy to check in, he should be sending soldiers there immediately. And now we're not even dealing with the fact that the guy behind this could just as easily be mind-controlling Russ to achieve his win condition, because we'll be dealing with that later, like my taxes from the Cayman Islands probably.
Why hire Serpent if you have no intention on collecting? And what if they wanted us at the White House?
But how would the buyer predict
That we'd get the invite, or that you would invite Isaiah? The buyer must be watching us somehow.
And he theorizes that the buyer of the adamantium set up the exchange hoping that Captain America would show up and expecting that Captain America would then be invited into the White House. And then Joaquin naturally asks, like, how could the buyer possibly know that Cap would receive an invite and that the invite would be extended to Isaiah as a necessary part of the plan?
Sam's reasoning in this scene is that, the buyer must be watching us.
Yeah,
okay,
somehow.
Fine, but like him watching
That's
you
not
in
an
the
answer.
moment is not an answer to this question. He's not watching you do things in the future.
But like,
He's watching you do things now.
Well, if anything, watching them would be like, oh,
this guy hates the president, and the president probably, like, he would never accept the invitation even if it was made. Surely, if we're going to be probabilistic about things, why would you bet on that being the case? That's a really dumb thing.
This will happen.
Isn't it so fucking funny? Because they're setting up gradually what we're dealing with in terms of the bad guy. They're already like, you know, how could he possibly know that? And you're like, oh yeah, interesting to think about. But it's like, we've already established he can mind control people. Why wouldn't he just mind control the president and have him invite Captain America? It's so fucking nuts. There's like, he got 5 people in the room to do whatever the hell he wanted. However, obviously he used the power of potential probability to be able to predict all these insane circumstances. What I guess I'm getting at is that there's no reason they should conclude what they do unless, of course, they read the script, which they have.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, remember how in Winter Soldier, Nick Fury asks Maria Hill to look into something suspicious, then takes his Chevy to the levee, but the levee was ambushed by terrorists?
Ruth Bat-Seraph, Ross's security advisor. Find out what you can about her.
This version, though, is quite significantly cheaper and worse than the Winter Soldier version, because this version was added in a panic long after the movie was supposed to have been released. You will note that all the doors on this truck appear to be shut, and there's no obvious way for Captain Falcon to get out. So he must be dead, right? Or does he also get the powers of editing to bail him out? Does he have black girl magic? I bet he has black girl magic.
Target eliminated. Stand by for proof of death.
All the same, if you don't have proof of death, then you probably shouldn't be announcing that your target's been eliminated. And you definitely shouldn't be turning your back on, oh fuck, no, see, there you go, black girl magic. During the fight, Captain Falcon, who is not wearing his vibranium onesie on this occasion, gets stabbed with a throwing knife and a fucking tomahawk, and this doesn't hinder him at all. First thing he does after getting tomahawked is a fucking spin kick. He walks into a later scene wearing blood-stained bandages and just says, good job I was wearing my Kevlar weave. But you got fucking stabbed, Sam. You're fighting with a fucking axe wound right now. It penetrated your Kevlar weave. The least you could do is act like you've been hurt. Again, actual Captain America movies with actual Steve Rogers in them, who is an actual super soldier, show him taking actual damage. Because otherwise, why the hell should we give a shit? He briefly gets the better of Giancarlo Expositiono.
The buyer told me everything. He mentioned there was a 77% chance you'd try to talk me down.
Why would he not have told you what weapon has the best odds of killing him? Why didn't he tell you there was an 89% chance you'd get beaten if you turned your back on his car before you confirmed he was dead? Why wouldn't he have tried to kill Captain Falcon using some method with better odds of success than one man and his AK? How do you calculate a 77% chance from the condition if he survives the grenade? Why are we talking so much about the odds? Oh fuck, we're doing the hyper-intelligent big-brained villain trope, aren't we? A super genius from the writers of Captain America Brave New World. You might as well have just wrapped an umbilical cord around his neck at birth. He would have come out with a higher IQ. Gus Fring tries to Uno reverse Captain Falcon, but he misses, I guess, and Captain Falcon runs off. Okay, fucking, you need to calm down with these crazy reflexes. You don't have superpowers. You're not even a character. They cut the characters out of this script, remember? Gus pursues Captain Falcon into a junkyard.
The buyer told me a lot, actually. He agreed to pay me double to take you out. What he doesn't know is that I would kill you for free.
But his superpower is prediction, so how did he not predict this? Captain Falcon turns an old battery into a toxic gas mine, and this causes Gus to panic and break cover, allowing Sam to Falcon kick him into a windscreen and win. Hey, remember the gas? You just used gas as a weapon. I think it's chlorine or something. You really shouldn't be hero posing in the chlorine gas, Sam. You definitely shouldn't be taking phone calls in the chlorine gas, Sam. Get out of the chlorine gas.
Well done, Captain. But you're not going to like what's coming next.
Who is this?
You know, he does sound awfully familiar.
In the future, I've become much more. In the future,
that will destroy me.
Could it be the Madam Web sequel we all deserve? It's a sequel to everything else. Back in Washington, the Indians and the French are annoyed with President Ross, and they are refusing to sign his treaty unless he can get Japan back on side. I called these guys the axis of overrated cuisine on my second channel, and I now accept that this was very unfair to the Japanese. Never again should they be lumped in with the Axis powers.
Osaki and I go back a long way. He's running for re-election. He needs to assert leadership on this treaty.
I don't know, has anybody told the Japanese people, who currently have the only refined adamantium, that this treaty entails giving away the most valuable thing in the world for free to everyone? I have a sneaky suspicion that would poll less favorably than net zero. This movie thinks it's a political paranoid thriller. We already know it doesn't have any paranoia or any thrills, but it seems also to have left its politics on the cutting room floor. On paper, this is an incredibly rich premise, a battle of wits, of subterfuge, of statecraft, and skullduggery over the discovery of a world-altering material that everybody desires but nobody wants to share. Which makes it even more annoying that this is the movie we got. Ross decides it's time to get out of his bunker and lead. That any one of these people around him could be mind-controlled, or fuck it, a Skrull? Well, that's not of any interest to the movie, not anymore. We're basically done with that aspect of the film. Captain Falcon, in the meantime, returns to his mansion. But he has a mansion now? It has a logo and everything. Hey guys, he has a cap cave. Looks pretty swanky in there too. I guess they decided that that big plot point in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, where he couldn't get a loan to fix a leaky boat because the Avengers weren't paid anything, that was just too to carry through. The mansion is only a small fraction as as that. I remind you, gentle viewer and hard lover probably, that Sam got the sack. He is no longer Captain Falcon, he is just Falcon. The state knows he is pursuing a private and quite possibly illegal investigation. He is a known unknown, an unpredictable concern. He should have been arrested. His shit should have been impounded. He should have been imprisoned, or at the very least kicked out of his cap cave and sent back to his sister's leaky boat, which any sensible president would then drone strike so we can get a better Captain America. He should not be able to concoct new plans with Eagle Twink, but that's what he's doing.
Sidewinder tracked me down. He's in police custody now. Last call. Trace it.
Oh god, I bet it's gonna lead us to a remote military base with an elevator to a secret lab that has a mad scientist in it. I predict that that is exactly what will happen. Somebody make me a supervillain.
Yo, get this. Ross's advisor, Ruth Bat-Seraph, she was born in Israel and trained in the Red Room. She's ex-widow. That basically means stay the hell out of her way, trust me.
Fascinating. I can't wait to hear all about that in some hypothetical future movie where she's allowed to be a character.
Now this is weird. Isaiah had Ross in his crosshairs. Couldn't miss. I don't get it. Why go through all that trouble just to not kill Ross?
You're right, that is weird, but I'm pretty sure you already knew all of this though, and the audience really shouldn't need reminding of something that happened a mere 20 minutes ago.
I think I located Sidewinder's last caller. Database only shows one name, Camp Echo 1.
I was right!
Captain America was always very cool to me, but became even more cool with how he evolved in the MCU. So getting to see what was done in the Winter Soldier in particular, and being able to take that baton, pick it up and run with it with this, and continue to evolve it, that was really awesome.
Oh, hey, you watched Winter Soldier? I'd never have guessed. This is where we find out that Sam has not one, but two versions of his suit, which I mention here because he's just a dick.
No, I got it! Back up! I got it!
So there are now 3 flight suits, 2 for Sam and the shit one for Eagle Twink. Pretty handy if you need to travel a long way in a hurry. Like for example, if you need to get to a remote military base to uncover a sinister plot and save your country from mind-controlled terrorists. Oh, or I guess you could drive? Yeah. I don't really know why you debut this second suit in this scene as though it's important, then have nobody wear it until the penultimate battle in the movie about 40 minutes hence. It feels like all of this is slightly out of order. While they drive off, Lady Midget goes to visit Captain Race Allegory in prison. She can barely see above the reception desk. God, she's so teeny.
I'd like to speak to them one at a time. Can you excuse me? I'm talking to you. Hey.
I'm all for giving midgets big roles in Hollywood blockbusters. Someone's got to undo the damage Peter Dinklage wrought upon the people of Small. But could we really not find one who could act even a little bit? He's shooting prisoners. There's not a ton of ambiguity with this one. Weren't you supposed to be Mossad and a Black Widow? How are you this shit? Speaking of shit, why would the mysterious evil super predictor villain only send one of his mind slaves in to take out these prisoners? Did he not predict that she'd come to speak to them? Did he not predict that she'd take out the mind slave before he could finish his job? How is he this shit? Up on Air Force One, Ross is working out like the doctor ordered. So he has a doctor who takes care of his health because of his heart condition, you see. But this heart doctor, he doesn't know about the heart meds. Or he knows, but he never asked what was in them or where they came from. He never investigated them at any point, even though the president is the fucking president and his heart could explode at any moment. Female roadie comes in and says, hey, maybe traveling abroad while there are mind slave assassin double agents potentially everywhere isn't a good idea. But Ross says, I want that treaty signed. Oh, sorry, no, wrong impression. I want that treaty signed.
Do we have eyes on Wilson?
They ditched their smartphones. They're off grid.
They evaded US security services by leaving their smartphones at home. It's this kind of bad police work that leads to 9/11. How are they this shit?
I don't want a variable out there that I can't control. Pick him up, bring him in.
But this was a factor from the moment you fired him. He's always been a variable you can't control. You should already have brought him in. How is everyone this shit? Captain Falcon and Eagle Twink head off to the remote military facility that Ross already knows about in their completely untraceable mystery machine. Look, Eagle Twink's playing an Oldman game on an Oldman phone. This is because they ditched their smartphones. It's very important we see this so that we...
Damn shit, they just shot up Isaiah's prison.
How did you get that on your dumb phone? How is your dumb phone getting news alerts, Eagle Twink? That's pretty smart for a dumb phone. Maybe it should have written this movie. Also, I can't believe I only caught this on like my third watch. Eagle Twink's wearing a fucking smartwatch. That's just as traceable as a smartphone. God, pay attention to your product placement, you cretins. We don't want another Madam Web incident. This could all have been avoided had Eagle Twink worn no clothes. I'm just saying, you know, it's a legitimate criticism. He could have been naked. Now I know, I've mentioned it once or twice already, but remember Winter Soldier? Well, we're now copying individual shots from that movie.
They're thieves. They're thieves. They're filthy little thieves.
They arrive at the remote military installation, establishing shots that looks pretty similar to. In they go, and look, wouldn't you know it, there's an elevator right where it should be. And hey, these elevator shots, the doors opening and closing, that's all kind of exactly the same as well. Since we are about to arrive at a suspicious and intriguing place where bad things are happening, we must of course show the suspicious and intriguing place where bad things are happening first, so we can understand how suspicious and intriguing and bad it will be.
Cooper, what's happening?
Mr. President, as a precautionary measure, I have moved the president.
This movie literally comes with trigger warnings. Ha ha ha, no. For some fucking reason, the movie has decided that it needs the evil villain to spill all the beans to Ross before Captain Falcon and Eagle Twink arrive for their own bean-spilling appointment.
It's you. The White House. The assassination attempt.
That's a way of putting it.
I helped you more than anyone else.
Only to get what you want.
What do you want?
I wanted my life back, but it's too late for that now.
You gotta understand my position.
Oh, I do. You let me rot in this prison, and it was my curse to watch your betrayal written in probabilities.
I'm making my own choices now.
So many surprises left. When I'm done,
everyone will know just who you are.
And Betty will despise you even more. Goodbye, Mr. President.
We'll have plenty of time to work out just what the fuck his plan was later, but it's already looking a lot like undigested arse gravy, isn't it? He's able to mind control random people. He's more than capable of escaping his own prison. He has all sorts of compromat on Russ, but he was cursed to watch his betrayal written in the probabilities? If you saw it coming, if you were more than capable of escaping it, if you had everything you needed to stop it, and or to take revenge for it at any time, why didn't you just do that? Why are you still chilling in your prison lab, Dexter? I probably don't need to tell my audience this because most of you are only a little bit but Marvel writers, character motives can't just be switched on and off at will. If they had the motive and means to do a thing earlier, they would have done the thing earlier. You need to account for why they haven't done the thing before. Back at the prison, Lady Midget moves Captain Race Allegory into solitary confinement for his own security. This actually won't work because, for all you know, every single guard in this prison could be activated at a moment's notice. But Lady Midget's read the script, so she knows that Captain Race Allegory, he'll definitely be safe in solitary, so she can leave him and go hunt down the Batman. But hey, just a consideration, might that put a little bit of a hitch in the whole death row plan? A mind-controlled prison guard just tried to assassinate the suspect.
A few minutes later,
Isaiah Bradley is set to go before a military judge tomorrow.
God damn it, I hate racism so much. Then Lady Midget gets a phone call.
Mr. President.
I need you to drop whatever you're doing. Camp Echo 1's been compromised.
Wait, everyone knows about the secret base? Does everyone know who lives in the secret base? Then why didn't you send people there ages ago? Is there even a mystery left to solve at this point? Speaking of Echo Base, Captain Falcon and Eagle Twink go on their little infiltration mission. It involves waiting for a couple of guards to wander off and then kind of walking in through the front door. It's all futile, of course. The evil genius inside is a super predictor. Surely he's seen all of this coming in the probabilities. He did predict all of this, right? Captain Falcon takes the shield with him, but neither he nor Eagle Twink wear the suits we know they have. Oh boy, I hope they only get attacked by non-lethal weapons, because otherwise they're gonna die. Into the base they go. They find the elevator. They go down to the basement lab. It is all very Winter Soldier once again. This is stealing. I mean, what a funny coincidence. Dexter's lab has all sorts of damaging information just lying about on the desks and pinned to the walls. To enter the prison proper, they must press a button to get past some bars. But that looks suspiciously like you can just reach the button through the bars? God, was it designed by fucking morons? But Dexter's lab is indeed a lab, and oh, look what's on the walls. It's an Incredible Hulk reference. Remember Samuel Stearns? He was a minor character in the pre-MCU 17 years ago. Wound up getting Hulk juice on a head wound. I just assumed that went nowhere because it's been 17 years and the Hulk movie rights would have given Franz Kafka an aneurysm. But no, I guess we're picking up where we left off. A bunch of photos are on the walls, former test subjects. Oh look, it's Captain Race Allegory. These are the innocent victims of the Super Soldier program. I sure hope none of this ever gets out because otherwise Ross's career is surely finished. Speaking of Ross, oh look, there's a file. The file has Ross's medical information in it. It contains a prescription for his heart medication. What torturous link will tie this 2 decades worth of forgotten plot together, I wonder? Well, hold your horses, because first, we're hopping away from the intrigue and the suspicion to the land of the rising sun, where some idiots are about to start World War III.
The world needs this treaty.
We know you can stop saying it.
Diplomacy must be hard for you, and in a country so used to taking whatever you want by force.
Hey Siri, what's the rape of Nanking? Just so we're clear about what's happened here, they chucked in the Japanese to avoid offending the Chinese, and then they had the Japanese trash American history. Someday soon, the Disney World castle is going to collapse from the earth tremors, caused by Walt frantically rotating in the Lazarus pit they've got hidden underneath it. I wouldn't be as opposed to this sort of thing if it actually formed part of a coherent political thriller plot, where the premise is that pretty much every country involved is using dirty tricks to claim the adamantium for themselves. But that's really not what's happening here. Ross is quite sincere about his treaty. The Japanese are quite sincerely stupid, and there's remarkably little focus on the international conflict over adamantium angle, because it's been relegated to kind of a subplot, an unnecessary extension of the villain's master plan. And I once again have cause to point out that the original plans for this movie seemingly played out much more like a spy thriller. We'll cover this in a lot more detail at the end, but the plot to steal adamantium was originally orchestrated by a character who is actually connected to recent MCU properties. It featured several more prominent and possibly recurring characters in the Serpent Society, and the trailers give the strong impression that Captain Falcon and President Ford weren't going to fall out right at the beginning of the movie, which naturally lends itself to an unfolding mystery in which trust is undermined over time, giving the whole production its much-needed paranoiac element. Now, I don't want to say definitively that this original plan for the movie would have been better. I don't think we can say any more than that it sounds more interesting than the film we got.
How else to explain your theft of our adamantium? Only to return it to us in Washington.
Wait, just so we're clear on the accusation, adamantium was discovered. You guys refined a sample. President Ford pressed for a treaty. You were keen on that treaty. Then the adamantium was stolen, but then it was returned to you, and you think this was all done to convince you to sign the treaty that you were already a party to before the adamantium was stolen? Ross says, how very dare you, that is silly and insulting, as indeed it is. Shit-faced Abe says, aha, charade you are, we have intelligence.
I'm a fool.
You should probably read that. It's intelligence, you know, the thing that this movie otherwise has none of.
If I'd stolen the sample, why would I order Captain America to retrieve it?
I suppose we will never know the truth.
I take that back. It turns out it wasn't intelligence. He was handed a document of stupid. What do you mean you'll never know the truth? Isn't this the whole point of having an intelligence service? Okay, fair. No. Right. Let me rephrase. Given how massively important this is, and that you're about to move your navy to the giant dead god that is also adamantium, and that this could very easily escalate into a full-blown war, don't you think it might be a good idea to figure out what you're fighting about? Back in Dexter's lab, Eagle Twink hacks his way into the computers. And by hacks his way in, I mean he just wiggles the mouse a bit and they wake up, because two-factor authentication is just, it's such a hassle, okay? Supervillains don't be having time for that shit.
He's got optogenetic data on a lot of people. Don't make me look up words, Joaquin.
Genetic? You need to look up the word genetic?
Figure out a way to plant commands into people's subconscious using flashes of light.
Mind control.
So yeah, the thing you concluded while sitting in your truck some time ago, just before you got sneak attacked by Moff Gideon. Congratulations, you can now conclude it again. A little bit more concretely. We have indeed confirmed that in a universe with about half a dozen other known instances of mind control is once again involved. It still doesn't answer how the evil villain managed to, I can only assume, hack the phones of his targets in advance in order to implant the commands via flashes of light, which are then triggered by the mysterious song. Can he only do it to people he's previously experimented on in his lab? Can he only do it to people whose genetic data he somehow has on file? I'm not convinced that's true, but if it is true, we should probably establish just how many files he has, and maybe even have a line about how he got them. And I'd say he just bought it all from the Chinese since they have all our medical records from our phones these days, but they refuse to be in the movie. You'd think long periods of absence while you're being experimented on by a mad scientist might fail the odd background check. You'd think if it ever got out that any Secret Service or Armed Forces personnel's genetic information was the subject of a data breach might also disqualify them from service given what we know about prior mind control experiments. And yet, mind-controlled people are in the Secret Service, the Armed Forces, and, as we'll shortly see, the US Navy and/or Air Force. But then, if the villain can do this to anyone whose genetic data he has, then why is his plan for President Ford so elaborate? He could have made him do anything because he's got his genetic information on file as well. He could have made him say the N-word on Morning Joe, moon the White House press pool, strip naked at the State of the Union address and deep-throat a dildo while humming Bohemian Rhapsody. It's not much of a spoiler to say that the evil villain's evil plan is just to tarnish President Ross's legacy. But he has this one hyper-specific vision for how he should go about it and what that should look like. And there are so many simpler ways of doing the same thing that don't risk accidentally triggering war with Japan. Anyway, it's time for the big reveal, so Captain Falcon plugs in a USB stick that autoplays a college lecture given by Stearns. I assume that he predicted this would all play out this way, so he left that stick there for dramatic effect.
Half bad looking, was I?
Samuel Stearns.
Now, there are a couple of reasons you would introduce a villain in the dark, maybe 3. The first, which is a given, is that the reveal is supposed to be shocking. Either, oh my god, it's him! Or, if we already know it's him, oh my god, what's wrong with your face? The second, which is related, is to build tension, anticipation, and suspense. Ooh, there's a big reveal coming. I wonder what it'll be. The third, which is not ideal, is that you're kind of ashamed of what this reveal is going to be because you got drunk and you gave your design team the words testicle and broccoli as a visual reference.
You know, it takes an awful lot to surprise me. There was an 89% chance you'd turn around if I put Isaiah Bradley at risk.
Yeah, I know, you want to see the testicle vegetable, and we're getting there. I promise we're gonna get there really soon. We've got to give them their suspense, okay? It's pretty much the only time they've tried to build it. But before we do, fucking what? You used Captain Race allegory because you must have predicted that Captain Falcon would go to see him and invite him to the White House. Yeah, that's already pretty unbelievable, but you know, run with me here. You made that prediction, which must be because you knew Captain Falcon and Captain Race allegory were brothers from the Hood, etc. And yet, you then predicted there was an 89% chance that Captain Falcon would turn around if you put Captain Race allegory in danger? It's linguistic clunk, but I think what the film means to say is that ordering a hit on Captain Race allegory would make Captain Falcon literally turn the car around, which I assume means that he ordered the hit knowing that it would fail and that like Midget would turn up to foil it, because otherwise he would have shot Captain Race allegory and Sam would have no reason to turn the car around. This isn't making a huge amount of sense, is it? What I don't think the film means to say, though it could be interpreted as saying it, is that he thought Captain Falcon would give up his investigation completely if Captain Race allegory was placed in danger, but oh fuck it anyway. The problem is that for this super predictor to make that prediction, he must have failed to predict that Captain Falcon would see continuing this investigation as the only way to ultimately free Captain Race allegory. And for a man whose whole thing is making predictions, while also looking like an inverted, rotting ballsack, that's a pretty big miss. He begins to exposit his evil scheme.
You're the buyer. Indeed. Hiring Serpent was a necessary step to create a chain of statistical certainty.
Then why have you been wrong about fucking everything?
My mind sees it all, every probable outcome.
but it doesn't. Like, we're standing here right now because it doesn't. And you're also not accounting for compounding uncertainties. If your plan is long and multifaceted and stupidly complex, any minor inaccuracy in one step makes the overall result less probable. For every compounding inaccuracy, the less probable it becomes again. Something comparably direct, like the naked dildo Bohemian Rhapsody contingency I mentioned earlier, that stands a much greater chance of success than a batshit insane plan that relies on a bullshit insane number of dogshit insane steps. A contingent chain of 70% probabilities is a comparably awful plan. You are standing opposite a guy you just gave an 11% chance of even getting here. Should you not be massively concerned that everything about your plan is now in tatters by the rules you yourself have just explained? Oh god, fuck, it's Thrawn. It's another Admiral Thrawn character. Mega genius written by hypertards. Why couldn't we have had a normal villain? Selena Meyer. Selena Meyer was supposed to be in this movie. She'd have been far better as the one really directing the Serpent Society from behind the scenes. What compelled you to go for the testicle? And of all the testicles you could have gone for, why did you go for the green one? Captain Falcon takes up some of the expository burden. Fairly simple trick, but not unadvisable. Conversations are, after all, typically more dynamic than monologues are. Oh, so you hired the Serpents to steal the adamantium so you could then order the hit on Ross at the White House, he says. The gaps in this plan are the size of a medium-sized whale, but hey-ho, probabilities. Then Captain Falcon asks why he would want to kill Ross.
2 seconds earlier.
Now this is weird. Isaiah had Ross in his crosshairs. Couldn't miss.
Oh, I'm beginning to see why you needed a dictionary to understand the word genetic.
Why does everyone think that I want to kill Ross?
Why wouldn't you predict that everyone would assume you wanted to kill Russ? You arranged a terrorist attack on the White House. What the fuck did you expect them to think?
Is it because he imprisoned me here without a trial?
You have a face for radio and they stuck you in a movie. This, by the way, is thought to be the originally intended design for the character, and they thought, nah, more testicle, more broccoli.
Damn.
Yeah, tell me about it. Tumor Man fills us in on the last 17 years of off-screen history. Ross discovered how useful he and his head Scrotum could be, so he kept him imprisoned here without trial and had him use his awesome predictive powers to clear Ross's path to the White House. The villain's plan is insane, by the way, but then so is Ross's. I'm gonna imprison Broccoli Man and have him make me president of the United States using his awesome prediction powers in order that I can sign a treaty to fairly and equitably distribute adamantium to the third world so I can prove to my estranged daughter that I'm not a dick. I don't know, couldn't you have just asked Dr. Testes to predict a simpler way of getting Arwen to speak to you again? Was this really the only thing you could have done? Professor Nutsack says that if he wanted Ross dead, he'd be dead. He says that Ross letting Captain Race Allegory take the fall for something proves that he will never change. So why? Why, Captain Falcon? Why are you protecting him?
Ray shields. Wait a minute. How did this happen? We're smarter than this.
This little device, this is an Incredible Hulk reference. They use sonic devices to try and defeat Hulk in that movie. Bollock Man has improved on the technology a bit since then. Later in this movie, he uses a pocket version that can kill people by stopping their hearts. But that means Captain Falcon, he's dead, right? Thrombosis Jones here needs to kill him. He just got done telling us how his entire plan rests on statistical, probabilistic certainty. He acted to create a causal chain, and his plan requires that everything remains on the predicted path. He's already told us that Captain Falcon merely being here was not predicted. Nothing about his subsequent plans requires that he keep Captain Falcon alive. In fact, Captain Falcon will go on to foil his plans time and time again, to his great frustration. And he has the technology to stop his heart right here in an instant. He needs to kill him.
You're a fascinating problem, but soon you'll be off the board. so you don't surprise me again.
But then he releases him from the Sonic prison, but it's still fine. He's got backup, okay? He's got a bunch of military mind slaves he's gained control of somehow. Captain Falcon and Eagle Twink are outnumbered. They forgot to wear their supersuits, so they must be fucked, right? They'll get shot on the spot. Huh. No guns. What even are those things they're waving around anyway? No, fuck you. I know they used shock sticks in Winter Soldier, and that's where you stole this coincidence from. It was a bit dubious even back then, but at least there were plausible reasons for Hydra not to want to just kill Steve in the elevator. No such reason exists in this movie. We've just been told by the nutty nutsack himself that he needs them taken off the board. You don't tell everyone that you plan to kill the heroes and then send a bunch of people with non-lethal weapons against them. You're on a military base. Your goons are soldiers. Why aren't they armed? Those tasers wouldn't even stop a moderately committed rapist. He would be dead if that was a knife. If a twink remains a twink after contact with a hostile soldier, the soldier is very, very bad at his job. Oh, sure, now you try to stab him with some gubbins you grabbed from the floor. You all deserve to die horribly. And you know what? I think Vegetables is lying about his superpower. If he could really predict the future, he'd have told you to bring your fucking guns. Oh, but hey, even if they beat these guards, they're still stuck in prison, right? I mean, just... But hey, even if they beat the guards and get out of the prison, there's still more mind slaves on this military base, right? Aha! See? They are still fucked.
Stand down! I'm taking them in.
Oh. But, you know, like, she's a midget. Midgets, they're not good in a fight.
Say uncle! Uncle! Now say, Carol Ann, don't go into the light! Carol Ann, don't go into the light!
Seriously, if you just wear shin pads, they can't hurt you. She has to wall run to reach their head height. These are trained military guys. She forgot to bring all her weapons as well. How is she beating them? This really doesn't seem fair. If only someone could have predicted that a midget with a +20 strength buff on her little jacket would turn up to help the heroes.
If Stearns is in the wingway to set a perimeter, roadblocks, air support, we can't have gone far.
Good morning, students. How are we all feeling today?
Here's a detail. She knew about Echo Base already. We know she knew about Echo Base already because when Han Solo told her that Echo Base has been compromised, she knew what he meant and where to go. The first thing she says to our heroes when she meets them at Echo Base is...
Where's Stearns?
So she knew about Echo Base and she knew who was kept there, but then why was she pissing around tailing Captain Falcon in the first place? Why wouldn't her first bet after seeing mind-controlled terrorists attack the president be to go and arrest the evil super genius the president had illegally imprisoned in a basement lab full of people's biometric data? Fuck me, she knew that Captain Ray's allegory was a super soldier, his pictures on the wall in the lab. Echo Base is where research on super soldiers was carried out. She's an ex-widow. She's an Israeli. She's fucking Mossad. You can accuse the Mossad of many things, but they do not employ How did she not join the dots?
You're under arrest for trespassing on restricted government property.
Trespass. The President of the United States ordered these guys brought in, and the best you can do is cite them for trespassing. But then, oh no, the mysterious song plays. These guys are mind slaves too. Are they all called Steve? Well done to those of you who got that reference.
Ha ha, virgins.
guns. And these guys have guns, just in case we were still unclear on whether Oddballs was trying to kill Captain Falcon earlier. They all obligingly shoot straight at his shield though, so he's able to bundle himself into a van and leave. And no, before you ask, Professor Ballbag did not predict this eventuality, and he will not use any further mind slaves in a bid to trace, track down, or strike the fleeing vehicle, or indeed the military base to which it's headed, even though he should have predicted all of this and should have done any or all of these things. At this juncture, we can pretty much wave goodbye to Lady Midget. Her role in the movie was to discover things long after the audience learned about them, then to be told to go to Echo Base, where she bumped into our heroes and rescued them from a situation they could probably have extricated themselves from anyway, given the caliber of Green Dick's Steves. And that's it. She'll tag along for the rest of the movie, but say little and do less. Her job, whatever it is done. Why yes, you might well have noticed her wearing some sort of supersuit in the trailers. You might have read that she was a mutant with powers, but all of that stuff, that got cut from this movie. Now nobody's entirely sure why she's here.
What attracted you to the part and made you want to play Ruth?
What attracted me to the part? It's like, where do you have an hour?
Over with the president, Ross is told that the Japanese are moving their navy toward the giant dead god statue that is also adamantium. Yes, even though we were explicitly told earlier in the movie that nations have been squabbling over it for years, and even though everyone now knows it contains the rarest material on the planet after modern Xbox exclusives, nobody until now has thought to position their navies around what the movie still insists on calling an island. This news makes the president very, very angry.
Poop pants. Poo pants? Boomer pants. You pooped your pants?
Boomer pants.
I want Carrier Strike Group 5 deployed immediately.
Notice how he said Carrier Strike Group. Notice also that the trailers clearly show a fight, or the aftermath of one, on an aircraft carrier. A version of this movie exists that most definitely and most prominently featured an aircraft carrier in this Carrier Strike Group. But then they changed their minds again.
If only one country is going to control adamantium, it's going to be us.
Slim pickings, right? But this is technically a character moment. There aren't many of those in this movie. In fact, all the character beats of note in this Captain America film belong to the Incredible Hulk's Thaddeus Russ. This beat here is to show us that despite his words, despite his genuine best intentions, when the chips come to shove and the push is down, Ross hasn't changed. This is who he is. This is who he has always been. Female Rhodey tries to talk him down anyway.
This is extremely dangerous. If a war breaks out...
I was a wartime general. I'm a wartime president.
Ideally, though, characters will be given a moment to reflect on or respond to their own hypocrisy. It doesn't have to be this scene, though it absolutely could have been this scene. It was female Rhodey that Russ spoke to at the beginning of the movie.
She's still not speaking with you?
She doesn't believe I've changed.
Female Rhodey doesn't bring this up because she's not a character at all, so she has no opinions on anything. But a different and better version of this movie would have seen her speak up in this scene, knowing that it risks her reputation. She could have said, "Didn't you tell me you wanted to change? What would your daughter think of this action? You must stop, President Russ." It would have seen her get sacked, sending her back to our heroes with the worst possible news. Russ is still Russ. Everything we feared would happen has happened. The movie would show Russ becoming completely and totally isolated, left with nothing in his head but his worst instincts and the voice of his nemesis. This would finalize a second act low point. The villain has escaped, he has control of untold numbers in the military. The president is lashing out, he wants our heroes arrested. He's charging headfirst into a war and he won't let anybody talk him down. Our heroes would be left with no choice but to risk everything, their own lives, careers, and reputations, in a desperate bid to stop the President of the United States plunging the whole world into war.
Yes, sir, Mr. President.
Fuck it, why do I bother? Captain Falcon, Eagle Twink, and Lady Midget, 2 of whom are supposed to be on the run and all of whom should be on the run, head over to a military base in Norfolk, Virginia. I don't know much about Norfolk, Virginia. Norfolk, UK is famous mostly for inbreeding. I am sorry to keep doing this, but you'd think rotting testables would have made mind slaves of some high-ranking police and military types, no? Take control of all the levers of state, deploy the police, the FBI, the National Guard against anyone who threatens your plans because you inexplicably didn't kill them. But hey, look who it is! It's this guy! This is the guy from earlier, Beard Guy. What a terrific character! He's not a mind slave, just put that straight out of your head. He's Captain Falcon's bestie, and so naturally the entire military base is theirs to use.
You sure you can knock out Stern's mind control?
I'm sorry, knock out what? Knock out Stearns' mind control? How in the risen fuck do you expect to do that?
I should be able to run a program that blocks the light signals that Stearns has been sending out to control people.
Oh, you can just run a program, can you? A program that stops people receiving little flashes of light on their phones. Granted, nobody has a clue how that works, because the movie hasn't bothered making it a mechanic. They've made this supposedly grounded technological device into a soft magic system. Sure, I should be able to use the Expelliarmus charm to stop this imperious curse. Run a fucking program. Run it on what? To where? Carried by what? How does your program stop all phones of all makes receiving instructions from an unknown device to flash light signals that turn random people into mind slaves based on their genetic data? How do you know who to send the program to? How do you know where to target it? How is any of this supposed to work?
What if he's already gotten someone?
2/3 into the movie, and I think this is the second sensible question anyone has asked.
That's a good point.
Are you crazy?
We're clear here at least.
Right, so you're just fucking mental. Captain Falcon asks Beard Guy to take a look into the heart pills that he got from Dexter's lab. This is another entirely redundant plot thread that leads nowhere and should have been dropped from the final cut. There's absolutely no reason why Captain Falcon shouldn't have gotten all the information about the heart pills and their connection to Ross from the lab. It'd mean we have no need whatsoever to come to this military base, of course, but I don't know anyone who'd complain if the movie was 5 minutes shorter. My guess is that they felt they needed some way to account for Scrothead PhD not mind controlling a bunch more people, since they've essentially given him an ability with unlimited power, and if he used it as he should, he cannot lose. But even having established the limit in this scene, Eagle Twink's mysterious program, Dr. Bollockbrain still manages to activate more mind slaves later anyway, so we never actually get to see the effects of the Eagle Twink solution. But it gives Beard Guy another precious few seconds on screen, so we'll all be really sad when he dies. Inexplicably, Gus Fring is also on this particular military base. That bit earlier when they said he was in custody, well, he's in custody here in order that Captain Falcon doesn't have to travel anywhere to receive the next expo dump. Gus demands a plea deal before he'll talk, but says he'll settle for a reduced sentence. I don't know why he thinks Captain Falcon is in any position to give him any such thing. Captain Falcon got fired. The Avengers don't exist. Pretty much the only thing we know about President Ross is that he stopped superheroes dispensing justice, well, extrajudicially. If Captain Falcon had the power to grant plea deals or reduced sentences or, fuck it, a full pardon, why not? Then why would his best friend currently be languishing on death row?
Reduced sentence. Alan would. My own cell.
Let me hear what you got first.
This might be a little bit too early to talk about essentially what Stearns' plan was in full, because we can talk about that in full once it's
there is
fully
a
revealed.
brief flaw with Gus's plan. If you ever find yourself having a conversation about making a plea deal, don't give away all the information that is your bargaining chip before you sign a document. Because Gus basically says, I want immunity, and then Sam says no, and he says, okay, I want a reduced sentence, and he says, yeah, maybe. And then he says, okay, here is the top secret evil plan. And then it's like, okay, thank you for that information. And then Gus says, well, when I get out of prison, and I will get out of prison, I will kill you. I say, well, okay, I'm going to revoke that plea bargain that was just a gentleman's agreement. I wonder what tremendously important information is so tremendously important that characters must act like lobotomites to excuse their imparting it.
You know, it was my old unit that found Stearns in the wreckage of home. They said he'd been infected with Ruth Banner's blood, but it didn't give him strength. What did it give him? A mind capable of impossible calculations.
We know all of this. We know all of this already. I'm pretty sure we got it from... I'm running out of these. From Testicle Head. I said I was running out, okay?
Ross being Ross, he saw an opportunity. Instead of removing the gamma from Stearns' blood, he upped the dose. Made Stearns his own personal think tank.
Wait, did Ross know your team found scrotal vegetation in the wreckage? Did he know you kept in contact? Wouldn't Ross get slightly suspicious if the head of the Serpent Society also kept in touch with his personal prisoner? Everybody knows that Moff Gideon is head of Serpent Society, remember?
It's Sidewinder, he's the head of Serpent.
Isn't it already suspicious that the future head of the Serpent Society was the guy who dug Scrotal McFaggins out of the wreckage? Ross kept balls on his head McGilligutty around to create weapons and shit for the state, Gus explains. This was during the time when Tony Stark was around creating weapons and shit for the state, remember? So I'm entirely unclear what weapons and shit from all MCU history we can credit to Green Sack Sam. Wouldn't Tony have noticed if the US government suddenly got a hold of a bunch of high-tech weapons not designed by him? We know he kept an eye on his competition.
Oh, shit! Oh, shit!
Wow. Yeah, I'd say most countries 5-10 years away. Hammer Industries 20.
I'd like to point out that test pilot survived.
Oh, wait, did Stearns make the stupid shock sticks? He must have invented the stupid shock sticks. No wonder Tony wasn't interested.
Why did Stearns go along with it? Camp Echo 1 was the stick. I imagine a pardon was the carrot.
I know we're just basically looking for ways to make the terrible movie shorter at this point, but is there any reason we shouldn't have got all this information at Echo Base? Nutsack Norbert had no reason to withhold this information. Remember, he was annoyed that everyone always assumed he wanted to kill Russ. He did plan to kill Captain Falcon. He's already a shitty ballsack of cliche nonsense, so why not have him monologue all of this back then? Fuck it, it even makes more structural sense. They go to Echo Base, they meet fetid Spunk Brain, he says, "Here is my evil plan. I will take vengeance on the man who imprisoned me without trial and promised me a pardon and betrayed me. I made weapons for him, but now he is the weapon. And now you will die." But they didn't die, they escaped. But now they're being hunted. Ross wants them arrested, and Brussels Ball Sprout has mind slaves in all the law enforcement agencies in this hypothetically better version of the movie. Then they have to sneak home, then they break into the Cap Cave, then they retrieve their suits, then they fly straight off to challenge Ross. Boring and conventional, I will grant you, but also speedy and efficient.
Ross told Stearns he'd let him go once he became president. And yet, here we are.
Yeah, those last 5 words sum up almost everything from Endgame onwards. And yet, here we are. And yet, we're still not done. Captain Falcon continues joining the dots that nobody in the audience cared enough to join themselves. Peter Perineum paid the Serpent Society to steal the adamantium from Japan in order to divide Japan and the US. He did this through a CIA black fund, meaning presumably that he has mind slaves in the CIA as well? Don't worry, it won't come up again. I just think it's important to understand how much more damage he could have done if he'd been competent.
He paid us through a CIA black fund. That could kill the treaty and start a war. And Ross would be blamed for the chaos.
Bold of you to assume that war wouldn't become nuclear and wipe humanity from the face of the earth. I know Japan doesn't have nukes, and they wouldn't want to re-trigger, and anyway, who needs nukes when you've got Gundams? But France and India do, and those are just the countries we're told are interested in the adamantium. And anyway, we already know that the Japanese can't even invent a reason for Russ to have stolen the adamantium. Nobody sensible blames the president for the actions of the CIA. Everybody knows these psychopathic thugs are
I am a cisgender millennial who's been diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder. I did not sneak into CIA. My employment was not and is not the result of a fluke or slip through the cracks. I earned my way in, and I earned my way up the ranks of this organization.
Well, they've been better, to be honest. Point is, though, no. I don't think people will have time to blame Russ for the resulting chaos. I think they'll be too busy reenacting the day after.
How do you think a man with Ross's temperament will deal with being caught in a trap?
I think if you wanted to catch him in a trap, you could have just revealed all of the preceding and damning evidence of wrongful imprisonment, cruel and unusual punishment, illegal medical experiments, probable breaches of the Geneva Convention, and complicity in creating a number of Hulk-like creatures that have destroyed large parts of several American cities. I think that'd probably do it. This, though, is quite enough exposition for Captain Falcon to be getting on with. He warns Gus that if he breaks out of prison, he'll find him. Gus replies that when he breaks out, he'll kill Captain Falcon. Seems to me he's just invited himself back to a whole life term in maximum security. Not that it matters, because I very much doubt we'll ever see him again. Or, well, maybe we will. 17 years down the line in Thor 9, 1980 Thor. Oh, hey, Lady Midget's back.
Did you know?
Of course not. It's not that men anymore. None of us have to be defined by our past.
You are fucking useless to me. Beardman says his friend will need 24 hours to look into the pills. Captain Falcon says they have to get to the president. So off we go to the Indian Ocean. This is a distance of roughly 11,000 miles as the Crow flies from their current location, and the Crow would collapse of exhaustion long before it got there. Google Maps lists no known routes from Norfolk, Virginia to the Indian Ocean. Happily, Captain Falcon and Eagle Twink have supersuits, and we know that Captain Falcon's at least can break the sound barriers, so I guess it's possible to make it there in a day? In the interim, Yo Scrotum Sam turns up at some random admiral's house, asks to use his phone, and shoots him. He has apparently forgotten that he already has the president's number. He spoke to him directly from the prison earlier. He's also forgotten that even assuming Eagle Twink's mystery program successfully stopped him making any more mind slaves, he still has an untold number of Steves in high places, like the CIA, who could probably have made this scene redundant, but never mind, it's Cap 4, the whole thing is proudly redundant. Captain Falcon and Eagle Twink arrive in the Indian Ocean.
Oh, you ever see anything like this?
No, I haven't.
It's been there for 4 years. You can fly here in a day. We've just established that. You didn't think it was worth taking a day out of your busy schedule to visit the giant dead god poking out of the Earth's core? You didn't think it worth checking out the source of these many years of international conflict that the MCU forgot to show us? Did it not make the news? Savor it, though. It's probably the best looking sequence in the movie, which is a very low bar to clear because it's also the only good looking sequence in the movie. Oh, but now I'm confused. There seems to be a distinct lack of aircraft carriers in this carrier strike group. Also, I'm prepared to accept that the Falcons could fly at supersonic speed and make it here in a day, but here's Lady Midget. She arrived at the same time and she steps off a helicopter. You are not taking a helicopter on an 11,000 mile non-stop trip to the Indian Ocean. Oh god, now I think about it though. How much cooler would that sound if it was called the Ocean of America? I'm just throwing it out there in case anyone's listening. Lady Midget must have made at least one stop because look here, she seems to be wearing her supersuit under that jacket of hers. I have absolutely no idea what it is or where she got it or why she has it or what it does because all of that got cut from the movie too. Here is just a tantalizing glimpse at what could have been. She tells Captain Falcon to let her do the talking, and she's just so fucking tiny, I just can't.
What's he doing here?
This seems like the kind of question that should have been raised before you allowed them to land on the deck of your command ship. Lady Midget said we should let her do the talking, but this doesn't go very well, because Ross is unhappy that she brought Captain Falcon here. The script long ago ran out of things for Lady Midget to do, so she just accepts her dressing down and Captain Falcon takes over, demanding that they talk in private about all the incriminating things he has discovered. Outside, stern Dr. Ballhead mind controls 2 pilots in the American fighter screen. How does he have access to the radio in 2 specific jets? How did he know that these 2 specific jets with these 2 specific pilots would be assigned to the fighter screen? Why did Eagle Twink create a system to block the light signals, but not the song that triggers people who've already received the light signals? Wouldn't that be the more important thing to block? Inside, Captain Falcon and Ross have their little tete-a-tete. Falcon explains that Stearns was pulling everybody's strings.
How the hell did he do all that from prison? Mind control.
Let's just slow this down and zoom in on it. This is the reaction of a man who has just come face to face with the weaponized bullshit that is this script. This is not Ross's reaction, this is Harrison Ford's reaction to the movie he has just realized he's in.
He created a technology that allowed him to control the minds of anyone he targeted. Including maybe you, sir.
No, that would be too simple, too easy, too guaranteed to succeed for a villain who requires statistical certainty. He could have made President Ross teabag the corpse of Nancy Pelosi's funeral that's probably happened by now. He could have made him carve a giant penis into Mount Rushmore. He could have made him plant the American flag right up his Andrew Jackson or order a drone strike on Oprah Winfrey, but he didn't. That would make too much sense. Captain Falcon points out that Ross's data was all over Dexter's lab.
If he can control minds, surely he can hack files.
He absolutely can, I bet, but again, that would make way too much sense. Captain Falcon presses the point and eventually Ross snaps. He doesn't Hulk snap, because we are not quite ready for that to happen yet, but he does confess to his motive. He was dying, you see, he was dying of a bad heart.
I had a heart attack. Turned out it was the best round of my life because after 13 hours of surgery and a triple bypass, I found something 40 years in the Army never taught me. Perspective.
So this was a lie? Was this the cover story? He didn't get a bypass? He took pills? Or he got a bypass but he still needed the pills? But he kept rock balls in Dexter's lab for, 17 years? So why would he have bothered with the bypass if he already had access to the pills? Why would Cabbage Dick Headsack have stayed in Dexter's lab if he already knew he would be betrayed, and if he already had the ability to get out whenever he wanted, not least by mind-controlling the president? I'm starting to think this movie might not make very much sense.
After your friend the Hulk and the Abomination destroyed Harlem, someone had to take the fall. Stearns was just collateral damage.
So someone had to take the fall, but you also imprisoned him secretly? I don't think you can have and eat that particular cake, my chum. Would it not be noticed that the guy blamed for trashing half of Harlem never made it to trial? Nobody asked what happened to him or where he'd gone? Ross complains that he spent his life serving his country, but the one person who matters, Arwen, still won't forgive him for sending the army after her boyfriend. He says he had to survive so his daughter would have a chance to see that there was more to her father than that.
I had to survive so that my daughter knew that I'm the same man that used to take her to see the cherry blossoms.
Yeah, that line's probably worth remembering. Those cherry blossoms become kind of important by the close of the movie. No, they are never ever mentioned in The Incredible Hulk. That doesn't matter. But you'll note that old Ross, he's not on screen when he delivers this line.
I'm the same man that used to take her to see the cherry blossoms.
You'll also note later that the quality of the CGI in the Cherry Blossom segment is a bit, well, AIDS. Quite a lot of that scene is just Anthony Mackie standing in front of a hastily concocted green screen, and after all, one of the surest tells that dialogue has been ADR'd in is that the person speaking isn't on or is facing away from the camera. So I'm pretty sure this scene originally contained no mention of cherry blossoms at all, because that was never part of the story, because the ending we get is not the ending they thought we'd get. Even if we cut that bit out though, it's all still broken. Captain Falcon, having heard this motive, has every reason now to try and contact Betty himself. Hey, Arwen Ross? You don't know me. I'm Captain America, I guess. I'm with your dad. Yeah, that's right, your dad. He's having a bit of a tough time at the moment. He's about to start a nuclear war over some adamantium. Oh, yeah, it's this new metal thing. They found it inside a god. It's a long story. He says he's doing all this because he wants to prove to you that he's still good people. Do you think you could maybe have a quick chat with him, calm him down a bit? Yeah, he's pretty upset. You'd really be helping me out here, so what do you say? Speak to your old man, stop a nuclear war for your old Captain America? You will? Swell, here, I'll put you on. And this is assuming she wouldn't have called him of her own volition after seeing on the news that he is personally driving a US fleet into a war with Japan. This Arwen, she's really not a responsible citizen. She's not a very good daughter.
I know what it's like to feel you have something to prove.
No, you don't. Get fucked. We tried all of that in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and it was incredibly embarrassing. America was absolutely fine with a black president. He was just as shit as all the white ones. Nobody cares.
Everyone only seeing one thing.
Hilariously, if you haven't seen The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, you probably have no idea what he's talking about here, because all the supporting dialogue when Sam complains about racism was cut from this film. Watching only this film, well, what do you mean, Sam, about people only seeing one thing? What could you possibly be referring to?
Hey, it's Black Falcon!
It's just Falcon, kid.
No, my daddy told me it's Black Falcon.
They're racist. Racist! A racist, and I hope you die in pain.
The rest of the speech is just your generic, it's not about when times are good, you prove yourself when times are bad kind of stuff. Stock dialogue, the kind of thing your characters have to say when they have no relationship to speak of, which is the kind of thing that happens when you don't really have two characters to have a relationship in the first place. They've got one character, almost, in this Captain America movie. His name's Ross. This very bland reunion is interrupted by the news that two F-18s are being piloted by mind-slaved Steves. If only there'd been, like, copious amounts of info on all the people whose genetic data testicular torsion had been playing with in Dexter's lab. Eagle Twink could have sent the lot of it to Ross and his team and had them immediately take compromised pilots off the duty roster. Oh well, simple mistake could have happened to anyone.
Stern's got to our pilots before I shut down the system.
Lol. LMAO even, they realized they'd introduced a massive plot hole with Eagle Twink's stupid anti-mind control program, so they had him ADR in a line to explain why the system he made to stop this from happening didn't stop it from happening. Well, okay, no, you couldn't have fixed it, but you could have made it less broken had you had Eagle Twink say that he can somehow stop any more light signals being sent to people's phones, but it won't do any good against people who've already been programmed. Captain Falcon could have said, well, it's the best we got. Even better than that, you could have set up that the light signals could only be broadcast from Echo Base. So when Krusty Lettuce-Dick is forced to run away from Echo Base, he loses the ability to make any more mind slaves. He could still use the mind slaves he already has, but that's all he's got left. Either of these alternatives would have been a substantially less clunky way to bring us to the point we've just reached while maintaining the conditions in place. Not that we should really want to do that, because the whole mind control thing is absurd, but they do insist. Anyhow, the big problem is that the rogue F-18s are going to attack the Japanese, and the Japanese probably won't like that very much.
Dear to our here to welcome you to this great football matchup between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Miami Dolphins. We're all set for kickoff and...
Oh, and Dan, it looks like Japanese people are now rushing onto the field.
This is not the kind of thing you want happening during kickoff.
Fuck you, Dolphin!
They'll think the Americans have gone for the world's most unbelievably tiny and uncoordinated preemptive strike. The obvious solution is tell the Japanese what's happening and have the Falcons take down the 2 rogue planes as proof.
We need to get the Japanese out of the air.
No, you don't. No, you need to get your planes out of the air. The Japanese aren't going to want to land while there's F-18s firing missiles at their ships.
Return to your fleet.
What the hell are you doing, you fucking twink? Obviously that's not going to work. Oh look, the rogue F-18 shooting at them. Who could possibly have seen that coming? Eventually, the Falcons decide that, yeah, maybe knocking on the windows of the Japanese fighter jets isn't the best tactic given the circumstances. Ross attempts to calm things down over the phone to the Japanese PM, but it doesn't work because he refuses to divulge the name of the man who is controlling the mind slaves. I'm not sure it would have made that much difference if he had divulged it, because the story is innately unbelievable. Oh yeah, I'm so sorry. There's this guy, I imprisoned him for years because he had gamma juice in his brain, and so he became a supervillain and he predicted my path to the presidency, but then he controlled like people's minds somehow, and he's using the mind control thing to steal the adamantium and now control some jets to try and make us go to war. Nah, I'm pretty sure the Japanese PM would have told him to go fuck yourself, Han Solo-san.
I spoke with Mr. Hirohito this morning, and he assured me that I have a very large penis. He said it was mammoth, dinosauric, and absolutely dwarfed his penis, which he assured me was nearly microscopic in size.
One F-18 launches one missile at one Japanese ship, so the Japanese fighters launch several missiles at several American ships, 2 of which get through the intercept missile barrage the Americans fire back, so now the Falcons have to go and take those down. What a kerfuffle. There's a lot of silliness in the fight that is frankly not worth detailing. Captain Falcon surfs on a missile, for fuck's sake! His suit is so indestructible he can use it to take out planes and missiles alike just by flying straight into them. Know whose suit isn't indestructible though? That'd be Eagle Twink, and while yes, Captain Falcon does have 2 indestructible suits, I guess he thought it would offend the Wakandans if he gave one to somebody who isn't black. So poor Eagle Twink has a boring old metal suit that's really not designed to withstand missiles at close range. He of course is completely unaware of this, perhaps because he never got that training montage he was promised at the beginning of the movie, so he stupidly takes out a missile at point-blank range, loses a wing, and falls unconscious into the ocean. I am quite sure liters of cum was spilled at the Icarus and Daedalus symbolism in his fall. It's the kind of thing that gets narrative teams hard. You just have to forget the chain of dumb fuck that got us to this point. The only other thing worth noting is that while this has been going on, Scrotal Sackville Baggins has been trolling President Ross, trying to goad him into losing his temper and hulking out. That, unfortunately, requires Harrison Ford to do some acting.
Mr. President.
It doesn't go well.
All that hatred you try to hide, all the ugliness, it's still there, Ross.
I guess nobody keeps an eye on incoming or outgoing calls to the president. Random admirals back in the US can be murdered and have their phones stolen by evil vegetables, and this gives the villain a direct, undetected, untraceable line to the President of the United States at a time of war all the way over in the Indian Ocean.
What have you done to me, you bastard?
He's trolling you, that's what he's done. You do realize you can just take your headphones off, right? You can't really do the whole get out of my head trope when you can literally remove him from your head.
Stop fighting it.
Well, he's trying, okay? Now, I've said several times in several venues that my suspicion is this was supposed to be the movie's big climax. We are in a boss arena. There was going to be an aircraft carrier, which has plenty of deck space for a boss battle. Absolutely everything about this is set up for this to be it. Russ hulks out, there's a big battle in front of the object of American greed, the adamantium in the giant dead god. I know, but it is what it is. Captain Falcon, Eagle Twink, and suited up Lady Midget versus Russ's Red Hulk. They win, he loses, he maybe does something to redeem himself just before he dies, but die he does, and we end up at the funeral scene from the trailers. But for whatever reason, this can no longer happen. So instead, Cringe Lord Greensack III baits Russ, and Russ almost transforms into Red Hulk, but then Captain Falcon takes out the last of the two rogue fighters, and this convinces the Japanese to stand down. Even though he took one of them out much earlier, and this didn't convince them to stand down. Crisis averted, Russ just stops transforming. Famously, transforming into the Hulk is something you can just not do if you no longer feel like it. It's why Bruce stopped transforming in Avengers when he saw that Nap was in danger, and did not then go about trashing the inside of a helicarrier. No, sarcasm, it's not the lowest form of wit, alright? You're watching this movie. This prompts sentient nut container to lose his temper. He becomes Cringe Hulk. They filmed it, they edited it, they put it in their movie. And that's it for the Battle of Midway 2 Pearl Harbor. It just ends, pathetically, a damp, soggy, fetid squib. Oh well, off we jump to hospital to see if there's any chance at all of saving Eagle Twink's gay porn career. Frankly, it's not looking good. Captain Falcon is watching on as the doctors carry out their operations. He's sad. That kid had a life full of promise, drug addiction, and getting plowed by truckers for money, but then he went and blew himself up like a moron. Clearly Captain Falcon needs some consoling, and who else to deliver the consoling but, it's Bucky. Bucky's in the movie now! Yay! At this point. Not before, not when he might have been useful, not when he should have been involved because the plot kind of demanded it. No, he's turned up now. They have a big hug, and Captain Falcon says he's glad Bucky's here, which is nice of him. Bucky says it's not Sam's fault that Eagle Twink has so many foreign objects inside him. He knew what he was getting into when he signed the contract. This is nice of him. I assume he doesn't know that Sam didn't share his second suit, though, because, that is kind of his fault.
That makes me think of Steve.
Oh, this should be good.
What made me think I could follow that? I should have took the serum. Like Steve, like you.
The serum wouldn't have altered this situation in any way. Your suit already makes you substantially more powerful than Steve ever was. Steve would have shared that second suit, though. Also, Bucky didn't take the serum. Bucky was imprisoned and experimented on, and injected with the serum against his will. I don't think he had much of a choice in the matter.
Why? Because this is all starting to seem much bigger than me.
I feel like there's an alternate universe with a Falcon and the Winter Soldier show that was more interested in its characters than its race politics, and that properly fleshed out how Sam and Bucky reflect on Steve and his legacy. Absent that, this movie seems to be saying that Sam believes it was the serum and not Steve that made Steve what he was. It was the serum, not Steve, that made a man capable of facing down intergalactic odds. But they worked closely together for years. Sam was Steve's wingman.
I'm just trying to be the best Captain America I can be. It'd be a whole lot easier if I had Cap's wingman on my side.
It's always that last line.
No, don't give me that look. That's what you were. I never got the impression you looked up to Steve because he was a super soldier. You stuck with him for moral and ethical reasons, for his values, or so I thought. Steve's whole shtick was that his true strength is the man that he was. Nothing about his outlook or his mindset changed when he took the serum. The scrawny kid who got the shit beat out of him but kept standing up for what's right only gained the ability to take the beating better. And even then, his enemies scaled in proportion to his own strength. He wasn't a super soldier when he fought Thanos, he was the scrawny kid again, and he still fought. To suggest the serum is what enabled Steve to be the man he was would be an acceptable opinion coming from someone who didn't know him, or someone who wanted to dismiss his achievements. It's very odd, though, coming from one of his two closest friends and confidants. How has Sam come this far with this impression?
A hero? Like you? You're a laboratory experiment, Rogers. Everything special about you came out of a bottle.
This line was there to be disproven, and it was disproven. By the time Civil War and then Endgame rolled around, Tony's complaint about Steve wasn't that he wasn't strong enough, or that he lost the serum and so ceased to be useful, or that everything he had was artificial and given to him by better people. No. By the time of Civil War and then Endgame, the complaint was that from Tony's point of view, Steve betrayed the strength Tony had come to appreciate in him, his courage, his trustworthiness, and his loyalty.
Tony, I'm gonna need you to focus.
And I needed you. As in past tense. That trumps what you need. It's too late, buddy. Sorry.
Well, that didn't work out, did it?
I said we'd lose. You said, we'll do that together, too. And guess what, Cap? We lost. And you weren't there.
And even that criticism was heavily qualified by circumstances.
Big man in a suit of armor. Take that off, what are you?
This is the question best posed of Sam in this instance, since he seems to think that powers and equipment are what defines a superhero. Take away his Wakandan Falcon suit and he's just a guy who thinks a Wakandan Falcon suit or a super soldier serum would have solved all his problems. It's really not the position he should be in at this point in his story. Surely he knows better than this by now. Sam complains that Eagle Twink is in hospital and Captain Race Allegory is in prison and the villain is still out there and he almost started a war.
He damn near pushed us to the brink of war because I wasn't.
Wasn't what, Sam? Strong enough? You've got the most powerful suit in the MCU, Sam. Which of your problems in this movie would have been solved by a bit more muscle? You've won every fight you've been in.
Steve made a mistake. No, he didn't.
Yes, he did. Captain Falcon doesn't need the shield and clearly doesn't understand what it, and the man who used to hold it, represents. And giving him the shield left the MCU with so little story to tell that the new Captain America movie has been taken over by Hulk characters from a 17-year-old movie. Bucky says that Steve gave Sam the shield not because Sam was the strongest, but because Sam is Sam.
Steve gave people something to believe in, but you give him something to aspire to.
Aspire to what? A special relationship with the Wakandans? You don't think Steve's example was something people aspired to emulate because the man he was the strength he had? Steve was only chosen for the super soldier program because the example he set was something to aspire to. You guys were complete assholes to John Walker in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, even though he had many of Steve's true qualities, for all that show tried to make him out to be the villain. Do neither of you remember who Steve was? Anyway, having spent about 3 minutes on what it considers to be a character moment, the good old MCU emotional rubber band snaps us back.
Did your speechwriters help you with that? They did, yeah, the ending a little bit.
Bucky declares that it's time for him to leave because he has a campaign fundraiser to attend. Speechwriters? Campaign fundraisers? Are you running for Congress, Bucky?
Future Congressman James Buchanan Barnes.
I'll tell you what doesn't have a limit. Captain America's capacity for friendship. He's always been there for me, even when my dog died and I had to call in sick for work, or when the Soviets had me shoot JFK. He was really cool about that.
Captain America spoilers, I guess. I don't know. Do any of you give a shit? Sorry, but Bucky being a congressman is so fucking insane as a choice that it is looped around to being amazing. How is he a congressman? He killed JFK.
God, you're right. Listen, it's a dog-eat-dog world in politics, okay?
It's time.
Okay, I feel like I'm stupid right now. I've seen the scene twice now, and I still don't understand the whole congressman thing. I didn't even make the connection. I just remembered that he says like I need to do some things, speeches and stuff. So does he say congressman?
It's
I don't
Ruth.
remember
The
that.
lady comes in and she says, "Yeah, future congressman. He's going to be in Congress."
Which matches the trailer for Thunderbolts.
Does it?
Is he not in Congress where they're talking about the nature of engaging the Thunderbolts as a team because the Avengers aren't there or whatever?
I can't remember.
Why would he possibly want to be a Congress? I don't understand.
My assumption is that somebody who wrote Thunderbolt said he needs to be a congressman, so get that shit going in the previous thing, whatever it is.
I don't get it.
It's really funny though, because it's true, he did. As among his many different assassinations was JFK. It's just like, does the world know about this? It's like, it's fine.
Kennedys are allowed to kill people and go to Congress. You're not allowed to kill a Kennedy and go to Congress. It's just how US politics works. Whence in the risen Hulk schlong has this decision come from, by the way? Bucky is a former super soldier used as a mind-controlled double agent by the Soviet Union who has killed dozens, if not hundreds, of high-profile US politicians, military leaders, soldiers, and businessmen. He killed Howard Stark. He killed JFK. The Bucky Barnes Russian collusion dossier would be fucking true. How did he get past vetting? And why would he want this? What would possess him to run for Congress? He's one half of an entire Disney Plus show during which none of this was even hinted at. Just give us a bit of notice before you tell us you're running to represent the constituents of, fuck it, who's mad enough even to go for this? New Jersey?
He's taller in real life. Nice smile too. Good amount of teeth. Great posture.
He's 110 years old.
I can work with that.
Your eyes are bigger than your mouth, my dear, and also than your tiny, tiny body. Mind you, at least she wouldn't bruise her knees when she blows him. The news reminds us that Captain Race Allegory is still somehow facing a death sentence. We get a quick shot of him lamenting that all his interesting scenes were cut from the movie, and then we head off to meet Beard Man, whose friend gives him a call, interrupting what seems to be a training exercise. You're allowed to take 5 in the middle of those, and he tells him that the heart pills are filled with gamma radiation. None of this makes any difference at all to the plot. We already know that Ross is Red Hulk, we've seen him almost transform, and we've seen the trailers, and the Happy Meal toys came out last year. We already know the heart pills are responsible for this. We found them in Dexter's lab, and Doc Ballbrain told Ross that the pills were his secret weapon. Captain Falcon already knows the pills were made by Brockelbollock and are bad. We, and he, can infer that these pills contain gamma radiation because obviously they do. That's the whole point of all these Hulk references. If we really needed this information spelled out for us, just scribble the word gamma above the description of the pills in the notebook that Sam found in the lab. It would be so much quicker. Also, fuck me, but Samuel Scrotenstein is able to turn people into Hulks by giving them pills. Do you have any idea what kind of evil plans he'd be capable of with a combination of mass-produced Hulks and mind control? If he's prescribed these pills to his test subjects, or had mind-controlled doctors prescribe them to all his mind slaves, he'd have an army of Hulks. Why wasn't this his plan? Beardman does what you do when you learn that the President of the United States has been compromised. He walks up a hill. No idea why or where he's going, but he's got an appointment with death and he can't afford to miss it.
This sound is currently affecting your equilibrium.
Where did you come from? How did you know that a man on a military base that we already know has no mind slaves on it, because we established it earlier, was looking into the heart meds? Who told you?
When I turn this dial, it will disrupt your heartbeat.
Yeah, so why didn't you use this earlier? Why didn't you use it on Captain Falcon? You have an app that stops people's hearts, you moldy legume.
I take no pleasure in your death, but I can't have you calling a captain.
Why not, though? Like, he already knows pretty much everything he needs to know to be very concerned that Ross is being controlled. Female Rhodey, who promised to tell Captain Falcon if Ross was acting weird but then forgot that was her job, has seen him acting weirdly. And I guess being told that the pills are full of gamma radiation might tell him that Ross is definitely and specifically the Manchurian Hulk, but based on the information Captain Falcon already has, he shouldn't be waiting around for more information anyway.
I'm the hero.
You're not, though. You know you're not. You framed your entire philosophy as being petty vengeance. If you had grander visions or aspirations, you would have pursued those with all the impossible tools you have in your possession. But oh dear, Beardman is dead. Rip Beardman, what a terrific character. And that leads us to the big climactic set-piece finale. It's time for President Ross's very important press conference.
Just wanted to let you know that every guest has been screened, and we also did 3 sweeps of the Rose Garden.
Screened for what? What did you sweep for? You still don't know how the mind control system works. Half of them might be Skrulls. Also, I guess Captain Falcon never told female Rhodey about any of the compromising material he has on Ross. I guess she's forgotten that he was acting at all erratically in almost starting World War III. I guess thinking's not in her job description. President Ross makes one last call to Arwen, and she, well, shit, she actually picks up.
I'm sorry, I should have called after the attack at the White House.
Or while your old man was about to massacre the Japs, sure. Ross says he knows he made a lot of mistakes, but he's really trying to change. He suggests they take a walk in Chekhov's cherry blossoms one day soon, and she says, yeah, maybe. It's about as close as we get in this movie to a nice scene, and this being uncharted territory for the film, Brave New World bravely runs away. Out we go to the presser, where Ross has another senior moment and forgets the war he almost started.
When I took office, I promised we would create a true, lasting peace. Today, we begin to realize that promise.
He's so forgetful the New York Times would call him sharp. Somewhere nearby, Captain Falcon is just sitting around waiting for the plot to catch up with him. He still knows that Ross is compromised, he still believes that Ross might be a mind slave, or even worse, we know he believes these things because he literally told us he believes these things, and it wasn't that long ago. He knows that Green Ball's head sack is still at large too. He knows they haven't won. Why is he just sitting there?
Would you do me the kindness of counseling a bitter man at the end of his rope?
Oh, of course you're here. When we last saw you, you were wearing a disguise, and the only people you were hiding from in Norfolk, Virginia were the trees. How did you get into the middle of Washington, D.C. looking like this?
You ruined my grand finale on the Indian Ocean. So now I'm forced to turn myself in to get what I want.
Are they both standing in front of a green screen here? It looks a lot like they're in front of a green screen and somebody just CG'd the exterior of a hospital behind them. Also, I have to mention, turning himself in does absolutely nothing for Testicle Face's plan. And no, that is not hyperbole. He achieves absolutely nothing by turning himself in. His plan, you see, his backup plan, that is to wait until Ross starts getting angry at the journalists asking him inane questions about the war he almost started, then to hack into the Rose Garden speaker system and play the recording of their earlier phone call, while also hacking into the journalists' phones with a quick info dump telling them he's turned himself in and that Ross used to work with him. One of these things, getting angry with journalists, was already happening anyway, and the other of these things, hacking the speaker system and the phones, is something he's done remotely all the way through the movie. I have no idea why he is where he is or why he's doing what he's doing, and I don't think the movie does either.
The way I see it, Indian Ocean wasn't about starting a war. You wanted to destroy his legacy.
Yes.
You're surprisingly calm for a man who knows that the president could be a mind slave at this very moment. Cauliflower Cockhead says, "Ha ha ha, but you don't know how."
The pills. I got somebody on that too.
Not anymore, you don't.
If that matters, and I really don't think it does, then this entire evil plan has come to hinge on Beardman randomly walking up one very specific hill rather than just calling Captain Falcon on the spot, which would be very, very embarrassing. I think the movie wants us to think that if Captain Falcon knew about the pills, then he'd have gone to apprehend Ross rather than chilling outside the hospital, but the problem is, as mentioned, he already knows everything he needs to know about the pills to send him to apprehend Ross anyway. So this is, I insist, completely redundant.
Ross turned me into a monster. It's only right that I do the same thing to him.
Yeah, he's Red Hulk, whoop-de-fucking-do, let's just get it over with. Ross gets angry at the journalists, the PA system plays the phone call, the phones receive the info dump, Captain Falcon goes off to stop whatever bad thing is happening.
Captain America! If I'm right about Ross, you're going to die!
I have about as much faith in your predictions as I have in your skincare regime, you crusty spunko pop moron. The mere fact you predicted Captain Falcon will die saps all the tension out of the coming fight because I'm now completely sure that he won't. And this was supposed to be your whole thing. Ah, how embarrassing. Oh, just before we get to the big battle, there's this funny little shot of this tiny little woman watching Russ lose his temper on the news, and she stands up and marches off purposefully like she's going to have a role in what follows. She won't, she doesn't feature, she's walking off to a cutscene. It's quite funny. Russ makes like an inflamed penis and he grows all big and red.
President Ross?
Lady, do you have eyes? Do you see the enormous red rage monster sticking up in front of you? You're not really reacting properly in this scene. Much as with the fight over the ocean of America, this next bit is just a pile of lazy action figure smashing nonsense. Whenever you spot something you think might be interesting, like the fact Red Hulk seems to be smoking in some scenes, that's because there are design elements left over from other cuts of the movie, where most of Red Hulk's unique characteristics, like the fact he has heat-based powers, are to be found in some abandoned hard drive at the bottom of a bin. In this cut of the movie, the Red Hulk, he's just the Hulk, but red. Ross's own Secret Service starts shooting at him, which might be treasonous, and then Captain Falcon turns up, so we already know Red Hulk is gonna lose. Captain Falcon's vibranium wings are able to pierce Red Hulk's flesh, which is the kind of mechanical quirk it might once have been worth paying attention to, because it might have had big implications for later movies. After all, if vibranium can pierce Hulk flesh, it precludes any serious fight between any Hulk and the Wakandans, because the Wakandans would win again. They always fucking win. And there I was thinking diversity is our strength. Oh look, Captain Falcon's using his helmet. Oh no, fuck it, never mind, he's not. Then there's some nonsense with a pole. Yeah, it makes no sense. I mean, fine, I guess vibranium could absorb the impact damage, but momentum is still a thing. Red Hulk sends Captain Falcon flying several times during their fight. If the pole is strong enough not to break, that is probably what should happen here. Some stupid drone helicopters get taken out with ease. They have those now. Much of the White House gets trashed, and then Captain Falcon leads Red Hulk to Chekhov's cherry blossoms in a bid to calm him down.
You see where you are? You remember this place? You used to come here with Betty.
We find him as the hero that he's meant to be. You know, this is not him equivocating about being Captain America. He is Captain America. For me, what was exciting about this is after you accept that mantle, then how do you define your role as Captain America? This is a Captain America whose superpowers is empathy.
That didn't work.
Can his little human legs really withstand the strain of being pummeled into the floor by a Hulk, even if he's wearing vibranium? Especially since we now know that Red Hulk is strong enough to break vibranium, given he manages to rip off one of Captain Falcon's wings. Oh god, does any of this matter? Not really. It's time for some Painel. All through this fight, Captain Falcon has been building energy for the next attack. And even though he's just lost a wing and had his sphincter resized by a giant radioactive murder troll, which you'd think might have damaged the structural integrity of his suit, not to mention his asshole,
damn right.
He unleashes his attack. Red Hulk charges at him, Captain Falcon stabs him with his one remaining wing, and bang! The stupid purple Wakandan vibranium shockwave thing containing all the energy he's absorbed from Red Hulk's blows ends the fight. Why, yes, he did just do that while his wing was embedded inside Red Hulk, and this probably should have caused Red Hulk to explode, but that would be too gory for this childish movie, so he doesn't. Also, Red Hulk broke Captain Falcon's Ant-Man helmet during their exchange. I mention this because it means Captain Falcon should really be dead, but he's not dead. A bunch of people dig him out from underneath some rubble, and he has a couple of scratches and a sore ass, but that's pretty much it. However, it turns out Red Hulk is still Red Hulk. Oh no! Quick, Captain Falcon, use your super empathy beam!
Well, I know you've done some terrible things. Now, I might be crazy, but I think you're trying to change. Now's the time to prove it to the world. Prove it to Betty.
I can only assume this is because the fight tired Red Hulk out enough, and that's why it works. This time. Unlike the last time when they'd only had like 80% of their fight. Or maybe it's the little blossom petal. The little blossom petal lands on Red Hulk's hand and this tips him over. President Ross detransitions. He gets carted off to hospital and then, after a vague time skip, we learn that he has sent himself to Azkaban. Like all responsible but also criminal presidents should, they take accountability for their actions. They fess up. They do the right thing. They send themselves to Azkaban. What does the movie mean by this? Lady Midget got up with purpose, and she purposefully marched all the way here so she could tell Captain Falcon that he should probably go to hospital. Oh god, there's just so many terrific characters in this movie, I can't keep count. But first, Captain Falcon uses his nebulous authority to get Captain Race Allegory out of prison. There's absolutely no point asking how he's able to do this, given nobody actually knows yet that green-fingered Cabbagecock never fessed up to his mind control plan. All the press now believes is that Ross was behind the adamantium theft.
Talks continue in the arms race for the newly discovered element as we enter the brave new world of adamantium.
Oh, they said it. They said the name of the thing in the thing. And there we were wondering just what the fuck the complex and thoughtful literary allusion was alluding to. A random, no-name journalist said it on the news, and that's why it's called Captain America: Brave New World.
Back in our nation's capital, ground was broken on the restoration of the White House, marking a significant step towards normalcy for the country.
What did the movie mean by this? Captain Falcon goes to visit Ross in Azkaban. I really don't think Azkaban could hold him if he became Red Hulk again. Has he stopped taking the pills? We never get that's not mentioned ever. Seems like quite an important thing to account for. If he hasn't stopped taking the pills, he might still be Red Hulk again, but if he has stopped taking them, his heart will explode. But besides that very important information, it's time for some closure.
It wasn't nothing to see you take full responsibility for your actions. Give up your office, accept your sentence, and have to let the country move on.
What did the movie mean by this? It's not all bad news, though. Japan has stupidly decided to sign the treaty, and as a little grace to a departing president, everybody has agreed to stick his name on it. The Ozaki-Ross Accords. He's got his legacy. It's possibly the most economically and strategically inept piece of policymaking since Jimmy Carter, so yeah, you're welcome to it, sir. Now, who wants to bet that the next movie to feature adamantium completely forgets that any of this ever happened?
I'd love to stay, but looks like you have another visitor.
Hi, Dad.
Where the fuck have you been? Did you see what just happened? Do you not watch the news? Angry president goes red and nukes White House. And you didn't think maybe it was a good idea for you to show up? You did pretty much exactly that in the Incredible Hulk movie. There is precedent for girlfriends walking into the field and calming down their Hulks. That scene might have made a degree of sense. For fuck's sake, the movie was practically baiting it all the way through. And now, no, there's just shit all over the bed. Also, that bit where Captain Falcon says, "I'd love to stay, but," well, he completely forgets to leave. He just stands there awkwardly in the background. When he does finally fuck off, it's to visit Eagle Twink in hospital. He bumps into Captain Race Allegory en route. He says he's bought tickets for he and Lady Midget to go to some American ball game of tedium as thanks for getting him out of prison.
I'm happy you found a friend as grumpy as you are to go to games with.
Is grumpiness one of her characteristics? I don't think we've had a single scene where grumpiness has featured. There are many words to describe Lady Midget. Small, tiny, petite, compact, miniature, portable, pocket-sized, inconsiderable. But grumpy? Oh shit, they named her after one of the 7 dwarves. It's a sick burn is what it is. Fair play indeed, old chap. Eagle Twink is now awake. And you know what? Credit to the doctors. I reckon with a little bit of makeup on that nasty burn mark there, he could still get rogered for cash. He might have to accept a lower rate, damaged goods and all, but that career with gayporn.com is still on the table, much like he'll be in his first scene. He gets a good bit of practice in this scene too, as the whole purpose of it is to have him tongue glaze Captain Falcon's asshole for a bit.
I'm sorry, I screwed up. Screwed up? Get out of here. I did. You never messed up like I have. You never got shot out of the sky and nosedived into the Indian Ocean. You were always on point.
Yes. Yes. Yes? Your response to a traumatized twink saying he regrets screwing up because you never do is yes? Sam, you lost a wingman in Afghanistan. Sam, Vision was shooting at you when he knocked Rhodey out of the sky and left him paralyzed. Sam, the Winter Soldier beat the shit out of you. Sam, you lost to fucking Ant-Man. What do you mean, yes?
Because if I'm not on point, I feel like I let down everyone else who's fighting for a seat at that table. That's pressure, man. It weighs on you. Makes you wonder if you'll ever just be enough.
This is a Captain America whose superpowers is empathy.
Oh, you shut right the fuck up. Your empathy is his superpower. Gary Stu here just told a twink who's lying in hospital thinking he's a failure that he never fails because failure means you let down everyone around you, you stupid twink failure you. You do see the implication here, right? He's not empathizing, he's rubbing salt in the wounds.
Where I grew up, I only ever got to see heroes online or on TV.
If you're under 30, buddy, you grew up watching superheroes. They're all over the place. Tony Stark revealed he was Iron Man 17 years ago. And your whole thing is, or was, that you're really good with tech. Don't be telling me you didn't have a TV or a phone growing up.
I kept thinking maybe if I get out of Miami, maybe one day I could be, don't say Ant-Man. Oh man, I want to be you.
His asshole is positively dripping with your saliva. I think you've done enough.
Sam Wilson. Because that guy won't ever give up.
Stop it! He's barely even a character, and you're only in hospital because he wouldn't share his toys. The payoff to all this is that Captain Falcon tells him vaguely how to Falcon kick.
You know it's all about timing, right? Control your spin, then hit your thruster before you kick.
Is that supposed to be an arc? Is that what the film considers character growth? He learns a new move?
I'm just saying, maybe you have like the Wakandans on speed dial. I could get me a hookup. You're gonna ask the Wakandans for a hookup. Yeah, that is the most Miami thing in the world. They gotta hook me up, man.
Why is asking the Wakandans for a vibranium suit specifically a Miami thing to do? Are people in Miami known for asking Wakandans for vibranium? Of course, he wouldn't need to ask the Wakandans if you gave him your spare suit, you dick. We conclude with our post-credits scene. Captain Falcon flies back to Azkaban. Inefficiency is his superpower. And who should they have placed in the same prison as the president who is vulnerable to mind control and known to turn into Red Hulk every now and then? Why, it's the evil vegetable who developed the mind control tech and turned him into Red Hulk. I really hope they remembered to put the release the bars button out of reach of the bars this time.
You want to know what's funny?
I'm not in the mood for your jokes.
Jokes? What jokes? He hasn't told any jokes. Did he joke a lot in one of the other cuts of the movie? Did none of them make it into this one? Captain Falcon says we don't share the same sense of humor, as though either one of them has one of those. And Vegemite Testabrain replies,
We share the same world, don't we? This world you would die to save. It's coming. I've seen it in the probabilities, seen it plain as day. All you heroes protecting this world. Do you think you're the only ones? Do you think this is the only world? We'll see what happens when you have to protect this place from the others.
I guess the movie forgot. I'm just gonna remind it. Captain Falcon was blipped out of existence by a giant alien raisin and then magically portaled back in alongside a bunch of aliens to fight a bunch of aliens to save Earth and the universe and all of its many worlds from genocidal aliens. I think he's reasonably well informed about the existence of other worlds and aliens. Also, I can't help but note, once again, that you are a shit predictor, sir. If your predictions were everything you made them out to be, you'd not be locked up in Azkaban. If anything, you predicting other worlds will come and attack this one at some unspecified date in all of the future makes me think that none of this will happen. You might think it's the safest of all the bets to make in the MCU, but when has anything this guy predicted actually come true? And with that vague threat that this Marvel movie will one day be followed by more Marvel movies in which something will happen, that is the end of Captain America: Brave New World.
So, how excited were you to come back?
Very, very excited. I was very touched. I got a phone call saying Kevin Feige wants to speak to you. And I said, well, doesn't he want to see me? It's been a long time.
I mean, this is pretty cool. What are we, 17 years later, and we're back at the premiere?
I am absolutely delighted that I got called back in to play this part. I had accepted that I wasn't coming back. I had mourned that, and to get to play this role again was a complete surprise.
The idea of Captain America as someone who is of the people. You know, we the people is in the founding documents of this nation, and it feels to me like this Captain America allows more of us, the people, to be a part of this great ongoing dream.
I don't think there's a black Captain America. I think there's just a Captain America.
The fans you saw, they were going crazy for you to come back here to the MCU.
Oh, it's so nice. I always wondered secretly if I was still Betty Ross, because I didn't hear any news for a long time. So I was very touched that I was still Betty Ross.
Un orgullo inmenso que obviamente estar aquí representando, pero también...
I saw part of the movie and
Are you mad?
No.
Well, Marvel is now in its full stride, and there's such confidence to the filmmaking.
What was it like for you seeing yourself for the first time as Red Hulk?
It was ridiculous.
We've reached the point in the late-stage Marvel Cinematic Universe where the premise for any given Marvel movie is decided by a process akin to the manatees who write Family Guy jokes in South Park.
You see, the right side of the tank is filled with idea balls. Each idea ball has a verb, noun, or pop culture reference written on it. There's millions of them. The idea balls drop into the joke combine and form a part of the new script. Laundry, date, winning, Mexico, Gary Coleman. A perfect Family Guy joke! I can see it now!
Where the MCU is concerned, that process is known as the Wheel of Feige, and this is how it works. Oh, great Wheel of Feige, whose movie is it anyway? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the Wheel of Feige has determined that we will be writing the next Thor movie. This will be the 4th Thor movie, so this is Thor 4 TBD. Now, we know this cannot be a straight sequel to Thor Love and Thunder because everybody hated that movie, and it's not how we do things here at Marvel anymore. Luckily, we have a whole bunch of films that are either old or obscure, with more unresolved issues than a child star made famous by Nickelodeon, and so worthy of a sequel. So, Thor 4 will be a sequel to... And it's Black Widow. Interesting. I'm sure we can make that work. Ray Winston survived the big Sky Fortress explosion, and he's looking to revive the Widows. Thor must team up with... what the fuck is Nat's sister's name again? Yelena? I think it's Yelena. Thor must team up with Yelena to stop Necro Winston. But what evil magic or super material does Ray Winston need to get his hands on? Alright then, Thor and Yelena must stop Necro Winston from reviving the Widow program with a flirkin. I genuinely think we're onto a winner here, guys. This one's bound to hit $1 billion. After all the reshoots, it'll almost break even. But we have one more all-important spin of the wheel of Feige. From which prior movie will we be stealing most of our plot outline and even whole chunks of dialogue? Captain Marvel it is. Thor and Yelena must stop Necro Winston reviving the Widows using a flirkin in the 1990s. And we shall call this movie Thor 4: The Will to Power. Sir, that name has certain negative implications. Nazis in the current political climate. Really? People still think Nietzsche and the Nazis? Oh, okay. What about Thor 4: My Struggle? No, that's actually worse. Why don't you use something from literature? Literature? What is that, my man? Is that like books? We shall call it Thor 4: The Bible. Ship it! This approach, genuinely taken by a major Hollywood studio in charge of one of the biggest movie franchises of all time, makes homework an all but futile endeavor. Even the teachers struggle to tell you what's on the reading list these days. But then, the wheel of Feige did duly spin, several times in fact, due to the movie's troubled production, and the results were as follows. Name: Captain America. McMuffin: Adamantium. Sequel to The Incredible Hulk and Eternals. Script stolen from The Winter Soldier and Civil War. And if that seems like a clunky and confused mess of influences, consider that what we have just witnessed could have been worse. So many drafts and so many versions of the movie got to various stages of production, all of which were met with appalling reception at test screenings. That the movie was shunted from its planned mid-2024 release date to February of 2025. But thanks to the complicated interplay of movies, merchandise rights, and toy sales, McDonald's went ahead with its planned Happy Meal campaign anyway, thus spoiling one of Brave New World's larger reveals. Oh no, my nuggets came with a Red Hulk, I'm so disappointed. While also, and more interestingly, revealing characters who would later be cut from the film entirely. Keep this in mind when you hear the director, Julius Onah, insist that reports of production hell were inaccurate. Appearing in McDonald's but not in the movie, which is frankly a good deal for the people involved, is Diamondback, who we know was going to be played by Rosa Salazar because look, there she is on the set. Likewise, this chunky specimen, he's the World Wildlife Fund's own Seth Rollins, thought to be playing either Cobra or Anaconda, each from the villainous group known as the Serpent Society, whose gimmick is that they are all named after snakes. Or, more relevantly, they're also mutants, as is Lady Midget. She's a mutant too, or rather, she was. Ghostbusters Afterlife's Logan Kim was also reportedly to feature as the character Amadeus Cho, a relatively recent invention who also goes by the name Totally Awesome Hulk. And no, I'm not making that up. Given that he sounds insufferable, we'll not lament his loss. In a similar vein, Mark Ruffalo suggested as recently as last year that he might be in the movie.
Do you get involved in the scripts?
Yeah, Kevin, what would you like to do? And he said, what would you do if you had a standalone Hulk movie? And I said, well, I'd like to take him from this raging maniac to kind of this integrated character. And he's like, okay, we'll do that over the course of 4 movies. We'll never give you a standalone Hulk. Let's just get that.
Is that real? Is that
true? Don't mean to burst your bubble, but that's just not gonna. I don't mean to burst your bubble either, but I don't mean to burst anyone's bubble, but that's not happening. So we'll do it over 4 movies. How's that sound?
Is that still true?
As far as I know. I could talk more about it, but I've been told not to.
But you have Captain America Brave New World. That's next, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
In 2025. And are you allowed to talk about that?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's going to be great.
He's not, which is for the best. He's been hyperventilating into a pillow since the election. We wouldn't want to distract him from his important work. Then there's the returning cast from the Falcon and Winter Soldier, two of whom were cut from various versions of the script. For reasons we'll return to presently, this movie did everything it could not to remind people of its ostensibly direct predecessor.
Isaiah Bradley is a character I think comic fans have been clamoring for, but most fans won't know. He was a black soldier who, much like the Tuskegee Airmen, was tested on to try and recreate the super soldier serum. The secret of Isaiah Bradley is that it worked. But because of his race, he was sidelined by the American government and became a pariah. When we first started talking with Malcolm, that was actually a character he asked about first, because as a black man reading comics, that was a story that really resonated with him when you go back to Truth, Red, White, and Black, because it's a point of view that is often lost. And again, unfortunately, society sometimes catches up with narrative. It's something now we're talking about very much in our everyday lives. What is the journey of being black in America through time? And this gets to be an interesting lens into that time and that character, which very much informs how people feel about race today.
Isaiah is challenging Sam just on whether or not a black man should be Captain America. He has that line where they will never let a black man be Captain America, and even if they would, no self-respecting black man would ever want to be. We didn't want Isaiah to be wrong about that.
Especially in the time in which we live in now. For Marvel to give me the opportunity as a black man from the South to become Captain America, I think says a lot, not only about the work that I've put in to get to this point that they would entrust me with that, but the way that they're hoping to change the way society looks at itself.
That last speech that Sam has, that's me and Anthony on the phone for a few hours. Anthony has a black man's perspective on the world. He's like, Mal, I gotta believe this, right?
I'm a black man carrying the stars and stripes. What don't I understand? I know what it is to deal with something bigger than me.
With everything that's been going on with COVID and the murders of Breonna and the murder of George Floyd, and you know the riots and the activism going on with the young generation now, and you know the Black Lives Matter movement, it's been jarring to me and surprising how timely this series is.
Not reprising these themes is pretty much the only good decision they made in the production process, but it means that there is no place for Veep's Julia Louise-Dreyfus, who plays somebody with a stupidly long name.
First of all, the name alone, Contessa Valentina Allegra de Fontaine. I don't even know what you just said.
Nor is there any space in the story for Elijah Richardson's Eli Bradley.
Who?
Yes, you might well ask. He's another Falcon and the Winter Soldier alumni. He is the son of Isaiah Bradley, Captain Race Allegory, who was in the movie. Brave New World producer Nate Moore explained, "We started to feel like there were too many characters to track, and we want to make sure if a character is in the film, they have something to do." It's a sensible approach, and there is absolutely no evidence that they actually applied it when writing their script. These omissions are all relevant, though, because they represent several through lines that would have placed Brave New World definitively in a broader context. You know, something all Marvel films used to be back when they knew roughly what they were doing with their story. The decision to cut the Serpent Society members was odd, given the Serpent Society still features in Brave New World, and they drafted in Giancarlo Expositiono to film some very hasty reshoots as Sidewinder, having apparently gone back and forth about including him. Cutting characters representing a faction only to add another character representing that faction during post-production suggests that nobody had a fucking clue what they were doing. Eli Bradley is one of the Young Avengers, the team that Kamala Khan is supposed to be assembling per the post-credit scene of The Marvels.
You've just become part of a much larger universe, which at the moment is just me, mostly. I do have feelers out, though. Did you know Ant-Man had a daughter?
What do you want?
I'm putting together a team, and I want you on it.
Amadeus Cho was reportedly in one of those early screenings working for Stark Industries, and he was supposed to help Sam develop a counter to the Red Hulk involving adamantium. His comics iteration also has ties to The Incredible Hulk, not appearing in this movie despite it being a sequel to The Incredible Hulk, and also to Hercules, who was introduced at the end of Thor: Love and Thunder. Remember that? Fontaine was set up to be a Nick Fury-like shadowy mastermind previously seen recruiting Yelena at the end of Black Widow, and John Walker at the end of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. As of Wakanda Forever, she's head of the CIA, she owns the old Avengers Tower, and she doesn't much like the Wakandans, making her the only sensible character in that movie. Her role in the original version of Brave New World had her pivotally involved in a bid to steal adamantium, essentially placing her behind the Serpent Society, which would have made an awful lot more sense than the version of that plotline that did make it into the movie. The potential involvement of Amadeus Cho is probably the least interesting of all these abandoned threads. It would have given us, by my count, our 5th Hulk variant in the MCU after Incredible, Red, Scar. Oh yeah, remember, Hulk has a son now. He had a single non-speaking scene in She-Hulk. Speaking of, also She-Hulk. And then with Cho, super special awesome Hulk or whatever the fuck he's called. Number 5. Explaining the absence or deletion of these other involved but then cut characters and themes is more interesting. If building a mini Hulkverse was desired but impossible, the others were deemed possible, they were even implemented. But then they were deemed undesirable and so they were eliminated. And it is worth spending a word or two on the why of it all. The trailers give pretty strong evidence of what this movie was supposed to be.
Your inner circle's been compromised. Let me fix it.
Watch yourself.
Sir, your inner circle's been compromised. There's possibility of another attack now.
And what exactly do you have to offer that our entire intelligence and defense apparatus can't?
We're on the brink of war. I can't trust anyone. Nothing about this feels right.
Captain America. You ever ask yourself, who's playing who?
You like to play dress up and blindly execute the state's orders.
Super soldiers, mutants, they're nothing compared to what I can build with this. They see a weapon, I see the future, and one that I will create.
I'm here to help you, Mr. President.
Captain, you fight for a broken system.
If we don't stop it now, the world will fall. You asked for me. Here I am.
What's he doing here? I don't have to answer you.
I'm here to stop this.
You're too late, Sam. The storm has already started.
Tonight is the first step towards lasting peace across this great new world.
Your inner circle's been compromised. Either you can't see that or you don't want to. The world is on the brink of war.
It's my job to fix that.
The world needs a reset.
I haven't always agreed in the past, but I want to make another run at making Captain America an official military position.
That it didn't end up being what it was supposed to be is not, I think, the fault of the director. Whatever his other shortcomings and those of his many, many writers, he is not responsible for the broader slate of Marvel films, or the direction they are supposed to take, or the pace at which they are supposed to arrive. The references to mutants and adamantium in the trailers, and their absence and relegation respectively in the movie we got, strongly suggest some multiversal meddling on the part of Kevin Feige and the Marvel executives. This is to be expected, to a degree. The Jonathan Majors debacle forced the abandonment of a great many plans. Delays to Captain America 4 shifted its relationship with Thunderbolts in the running order. An MCU X-Men introduction is mooted, but we still don't know when or in what form, and if the script has yet to be written, then neither do they. Fantastic Four is due out this year, and the drab performance of Captain America 4, coupled with the general lack of anticipation for Thunderbolts and fucking Ironheart, already makes it, you have to suspect, Marvel's last chance for a hit in 2025. You would imagine plans will again be altered if that movie fails to meet expectations. And given the checkered history of recent Marvel projects, and several past failures to create a successful Fantastic Four franchise, that failure has alarmingly good odds. Given all this, and the long production time, multiple delays and reshoots that Captain Falcon was subjected to, the picture looks something like this. They were told they would be forming part of the build-up to Fantastic Four and the X-Men, and that they should therefore concatenate both mutants and adamantium into their plot. Mutants have already had references in Ms. Marvel and the Marvels. We know the studio wants all these things seeded in advance of their full debut, and their presence in this movie once gave more heft to the New World Order or Brave New World title. After all, this is not only a new material in adamantium, but a new class of hero we're dealing with. A serpent society who are mutants with no Avengers team to counter them would truly feel like a shift in the world state, a reminder that Earth is lacking its greatest heroes, and in their absence, greater villains are emerging. That they were deleted entirely from the plot left the movie lacking one of its most significant planks of world building. Neither the director nor the writers deserve blame for what was almost certainly a decision foisted upon them, though they do deserve blame for the way they dealt with the setback. In no world is it easy to tear out chunks of your movie by the roots and produce a coherent story from what's left, but they might have at least tried to plant something new in its place. Okay, fine, Lady Midget, she doesn't have to be mentioned as a mutant, she doesn't have to be shown having powers, we don't have to do that anymore. It does mean she's lost one of the most important reasons for her existence, but you could have given her something else. You could have hinted at her true nature, a mystery to be revealed later. You could have raised interesting questions about her origin. And at the very least, you could have remembered to swap that supersuit out in post. The other big shift that's apparent when you compare trailer lines and footage to the movie we got straddles both world building and theme, and here cowardice almost certainly motivated the rewrites.
What if it's a trap? Stand by for proof of that. Somebody is pulling the strings on everything.
The Cabbage Patch villain we got has nothing to say about systems, about America, about the broader world and his place within it. His gripe with Ross is petty comic book revenge plot stuff. You wronged me in that movie 17 years ago. I have belatedly decided to take revenge. It's so generic and easy to write and then forget all about that it positively reeks of a panicky do-over after the early test screenings met with disapprobation, reportedly sparked by the movie's politics as much as by its dodgy action sequences, its cheap CGI, its lack of characters, and everything else. You can certainly see a political charge in the trailers that is entirely lacking from the Brave New World we got, which damn near broke itself trying to avoid adding politics to what was supposed to be a political intrigue thriller premise. The effort proved too great for it in the end, as the pretty unsubtle wish fulfillment fantasy of a criminal president doing the right thing and sentencing himself to Azkaban proved. But hey, they got all the way to the finale. Nice job, guys. You did so well. It's impossible to say for sure precisely what political content the test screen audiences reacted so badly to. We can, though, take an educated guess based on the last MCU production that had any confidence in its convictions. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier was a masterpiece demonstration of modern writers' inability to separate fictional and real-world politics. A story that was supposed to be set amid the fallout of the blip damned near forgot about the blip entirely, so obsessed was it with cramming in as many faddish progressive bromides as possible. To criticize the largely fictitious problem of redlining, it laughably pretended that Avengers had no money. To propagate its black martyrdom myths, it decided that everybody who didn't notice or care that there were black people in the Avengers suddenly noticed, cared, and disliked that there were black people in the Avengers. Having given Sam the shield because he was black, they used their own show to argue with people who noticed they'd given him the shield because he was black. Having nominally justified that choice because Sam was Steve's wingman, they had him repudiate Steve's values of personal virtue, self-reliance, and the pursuit of the right even when the country is in the wrong, in favor of a speech imploring politicians to take care of all of the world's problems. And to squeeze in protest placard quality slogans about refugees, the show overlooked that the refugees it created and championed were pretty happy with the notions of mass theft and genocide.
You have to stop calling them terrorists.
Yeah, fuck you, they were terrorists. The MCU was right, as I've said, to ditch that kind of fourth wall breaking preachy nonsense. The problem is, and I do suspect we're in for a lot more of it over the next few years of movies, is that studios seldom see a lesson without learning the wrong one. The answer to subordinating fictional to real-world politics is not to ditch fictional politics, it's to enforce the separation between these two distinct categories. Movies and shows the director claims as his inspiration for whatever movie he thought he was making, 3 Days of the Condor, The Manchurian Candidate, Point Blank, The Wire, they all have internal politics. It is very hard to make a political espionage conspiracy thriller without politics. But the rules for such productions are similar to the rules that make for the best political satire. In none of Yes Minister, Yes Prime Minister, The Thick of It, In the Loop, Veep, and so on, do you ever learn which party is in power, because these shows satirize, amongst other things, the degeneracy of the party system of government. Particulars might provide color, but universals provide core content. Corruption, skullduggery, and venality cross party political lines. And the same holds in thrillers like Condor, where the sinister machinations of shady groups with a penchant for extrajudicial killing are a threat to the hero, who is a stand-in for every man. The politics, subtextual or textual, is that villains threaten us, and where government is party to villainy, it is seen to be betraying the nation as a whole. This is hard to pull off though when your politics as a writer are the type espoused in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which demonstrates a paradoxical faith in government and disdain for the nation it governs. If your real gripe is with the people of your nation, and with the ideals of the nation itself, then protecting these things from the man is unlikely to be your primary concern. A universalist political thriller where the government must be protected from the voters is, put politely, a quixotic proposition.
For me, Captain America represents a lot of different things, and I don't think the term, America should be one of those representations. Like, it's about a man who keeps his word, who has honor, dignity, and integrity. Someone who is trustworthy and dependable.
It's perfectly possible, desirable even, to tell a story where your hero and your villain battle to represent your country and its ideals, which I suspect is what we were supposed to get, hence those trailer shots of Stearns dressed as Uncle Sam. This is kind of what we got with The Winter Soldier, and with Civil War as well, which pits Steve Rogers and his quintessentially American soul against the American state as it had become. Winter Soldier set known rights and ancient liberties against a national security state that acceded without realizing it to the premise of its enemies, that freedom is the problem.
We're going to neutralize a lot of threats before they even happen.
Thought the punishment usually came after the crime.
We can't afford to wait that long. For once, we're way ahead of the curve.
By holding a gun to everyone on Earth and calling it protection.
In the name of good, the state accrued to itself so much power that the enemy could waltz in through the front door and find all his work had been done for him. The theme of Winter Soldier is an expression of Benjamin Franklin's famous saying, "Those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety." Captain America Civil War added nuance to this by correctly discerning that the demands of freedom and control are impossible to fully reconcile. Both Tony and Steve have good points, and the movie gives each the space to make them, resolving as it does with the conclusion that there is no perfect resolution. But in both cases, the dilemma, which is philosophical but also absolutely political, is both perfectly diegetic and admirably universal. It makes sense in its universe, and it is relatable to everybody in ours. But nobody at that time doubted that Steve Rogers as Captain America represented the best of America. The clue is in the name. The version of Sam Wilson created by The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, on the other hand, took Anthony Mackie's reflexive cultural cringe, the instinct to separate your nation from its highest ideals, and applied it to the nth degree. What, in the version of this movie that got panned by test screen victims, was the argument between Stearns and Sam supposed to be? You're fighting for a moral abyss, an ethical shit-stained nation, a corrupt and abusive system, says Stearns. Yeah, I guess, says Sam, but that's why the senators gotta do better. None of this is to say that your heroes shouldn't doubt themselves and their values from time to time. Superheroes, by their very nature, are excellent vehicles to interrogate first principles. Think Matt Murdock versus Frank Castle in their rooftop debate in Daredevil. But an American audience has every right to expect that Captain America should, in the end, embody the best of the American people, the best values of the nation, and not conclude that the American people are racist bigots who need to do better. I was about to call this the unspoken subtext of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but actually, it's spoken explicitly and repeatedly. There is no contradiction between the national and the universal when your nation is founded to embody the universal. It is only because of the high ideals of the American founding that we can say definitively when it fell short. Nobody in Britain prefers Captain Britain to Captain America because Captain America speaks to the best in us as well. So, there is no reason whatsoever that Captain America 4 couldn't have kept cogent internal politics in its political thriller without indulging in the type of writing that is masochistic about its own culture and sadistic in inflicting Captain Kendi on its audience. Julia Louis-Dreyfus's Contessa de Fontaine, as head of the CIA, cynically manipulating the criminal serpent society to steal adamantium from her own government, would perfectly fit the kind of Manchurian point-blank condor model the director claims were his inspirations. While audiences probably are much more attuned to and skeptical of even the faintest whiff of political posturing these days, given it stunk the place out for many, many years, I'm pretty sure enough of them understand the difference between diegetic universal politics and non-diegetic partisan lecturing. If the test scores were truly so poor because of the movie's politics, it's probably because Captain America went around calling us all racist again while the sympathetic villain was excused for his mass murder because his critique of American capitalism was actually spot on. But overreacting to that criticism, junking the non-diegetic lecturing but throwing out the diegetic in-universe politics along with it, as seems to have happened to this movie, left us with a broken and empty shell of a film with nothing to say and nothing worth grabbing onto. Generic villains steal massively important adamantium, more on that in later movies, I guess, under orders from evil Dr. Crotchrot to get back at a president with no policies because he vaguely wronged him maybe 2 decades ago, I guess. Yeah, how fucking forgettable. And this brings us at last to the characters. Here is an exquisitely painful interview.
What attracted you to the part and made you want to play Ruth?
What attracted me to the part, it's like, where do you have an hour? I mean, first of all, being part of the MCU world, it's such a dream. You know, it's bigger than a dream. Like, I never thought about that, and it's such a big honor, and I'm so excited to be part of it. And Ruth, I mean, Ruth is she's an ex-Black Widow, right? She works for the US government, close to Ross, the legend Harrison Ford. And I think what's so special about her for me is that she's like, first of all, such a badass, super tough, super strong, super mission-oriented, straightforward, no BS, right? Eyes on the ball, as I say. But at the same time, that's my interpretation, because of her past, she has a lot of understanding to the ability of people to change. So I think this kind of like combination of this character made me very excited to play and to approach. And also there were just some scenes that I was like, I couldn't wait to take part of and to do. So, I mean, so many reasons that I was just drawn immediately to Ruth and to this project in general.
You touched on this a little bit. But describe Ruth as her character and how she fits into the story.
Okay, so Ruth Bat-Seraph, as I mentioned, she is an ex-Black Widow. She works for the US government very closely to the amazing Harrison Ford, to Ross, the president. And I cannot say much, right? No spoilers, but she joins kind of like Sam's journey within this film, kind of like him trying to solve this international crisis that's being unfolded through the film. And she is a true badass You don't want to mess with her. And yeah, there are some really exciting scenes that I cannot wait for the fans to watch.
What ways do you relate to her?
Wow. In what ways do I relate to her? Listen, she's very different. The character is very different for me, definitely. I mean, her past and everything is so different and complex and dark in a way, the way I see it. I think her ability to kind of like see people and their ability to change, and to go through transformation, which I also think it's such a big part of the film and its message. That's something that I really support and resonate with. At least I hope so. So yeah.
God, you'd think they would have noticed that she couldn't answer the question. Just asking it again is cruel, and it's a representative point. What is there to say about any of the characters in this movie beyond their mere premise? Half of them didn't even make it into the movie, but those that did had their histories, their thoughts, their personalities, and their main involvement in the plot removed to suit this cowardly new world that we're living in. Lady Midget simply isn't a character, she has nothing. She's there in some scenes, and that's kind of it. We're told by other people the absolute minimum in establishing details about her. Oh, she's Israeli, she used to be a widow. That means we should ask no questions and we should leave her the fuck alone. And that's pretty much what the script itself did. How did an ex-widow become head of security for the President of the United States? How did she remain in that position once it became clear that the villain was using mind control, given she was herself a victim of mind control? I don't know the answers to any of these things. Why didn't she make the connection between Stern's Echo Base and the mind control plan? Is she just an idiot despite her background? I spotted the connection, and I'm nobody's security advisor that I'm allowed to divulge. Does Lady Midget have thoughts or feelings about anything? If she does, well, none of them made it into the movie. Much the same is true of Beard Man and Giancarlo Expositiono, of whom there is little to note but that they were present occasionally. They were in the movie, they had a couple of scenes. One of them walked up a hill for some reason, he died. That's the end. The other was supposed to be the secret head of an evil criminal organization, yet his name, image, and identity were all known to the government and the US military, and they seemed to have no trouble identifying or locating him from a distance. He gets duped by another villain, but goes back to work for him again because he really wants a chance to kill Captain America. Why? Is it just trophy hunting to you? Or do you have some more meaningful or personal grudge? Might have been nice if that had been mentioned in the film. He was added to the script too late to add any of these details, however, so the, character, as presented, is just an incompetent goon who we are told is an elite killer, but who demonstrates all the strategic and tactical awareness of an autistic 12-year-old on card. Moving into the tier that we are obliged by convention to call main characters, well, things don't get much better. In simply reiterating the least racially charged elements of his backstory from the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Isaiah Bradley, Captain Race Allegory himself, becomes an interesting proposition. A man, a super soldier no less, wrongly imprisoned and abused by his country, who now finds himself caught up in a plot against his country. Who will he fight for? How will this affect him? Might he even sympathize with the villain, given he was a victim of the corrupt system against which the villain claimed, in the trailers, to be fighting? But they cut all the scenes where those conversations might have been had, and they stuck him in prison, safe and out of the way. I think he has about 3 short scenes after he's caught. He tells Sam he'll die inside, so not to come back to save him. He tells Lady Midget that he doesn't want to go into solitary confinement. At the end of the movie, he buys her a ticket to go to some silly American sports ball game, which Captain Falcon thinks appropriate because they are both grumpy. This is the first time grumpiness has been attached to the character of Lady Midget. In fact, it's her first definite characteristic, albeit we had to be told about it while she was off screen. So this potentially fascinating character in Captain Race Allegory has been denuded of all the potential he once possessed because the writers couldn't think of any way to utilize him which which didn't come across as lecturing the audience about the evils of American racism. Combined with the fact he's easily the best actor in the movie, and you get, well, a complete and utter waste. Great! Captain Race allegory is introduced in this movie with grave doubts about Captain Falcon working for President Ross, but no, those don't get addressed. There is no reflection at the close. He's just taken Lady Midget to the fucking baseball. That's more important to the plot. Moving on. Joaquin Torres, Eagle Twink. Oh, he's so pretty. Insufficiently naked. Anything else to say? Well, he's been reinvented at some point off screen, going from sexy nerd to sexy nerd and highly trained Falcon suit pilot, which skill set I'm pretty sure is never even hinted at in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Except, as we saw, he simultaneously wasn't highly trained because he hadn't learned the basics, as we were told in the movie, by the movie. Except, as we also saw, he was highly trained such that he had his own suit and could go on missions and execute high-speed maneuvers with skill. Except, as we then saw, he crashed headfirst into a missile because he was rash and careless, maybe. And he did this because, even though he tells us he grew up without TVs and phones, hence his tremendous tech skills, he saw and idolized Falcon, of all the people, because Falcon is always on point. Falcon never fails. So I guess Eagle Twink, he's a very pretty idiot. But he does at least have something approaching a personality, which is more than can be said for, Captain Falcon, you know, the nominal main character of the movie, but we'll come back to him in a moment. Before that, though, Samuel Stearns, Bendy Testerberger himself. It's hard to say exactly which character suffered the most from the cuts made during the reshoots, but he has to be in the top 3. Trailer Stearns clearly had thoughts about the world. Movie Stearns does not. A man with a fungal infection for a head, his superpower is super prediction, which makes it very embarrassing that all his predictions ended up being wrong. We've gone over at length how absurdly convoluted his plan was, especially given his very simple revenge motive. Given his stated power set, his demonstrated power set makes him one of the most incompetent villains in the entire MCU. And this is a franchise with some very, very, very dumb villains. Stearns hired the Serpent Society to steal adamantium from the Japanese, so the Americans would send Captain Falcon, so Captain Falcon would invite Captain Race Allegory to the White House, so Stearns could mind control Captain Race Allegory to not shoot the president, so Captain Race Allegory could end up in prison, so that Stearns could mind control people who would fail to kill Captain Race Allegory in order to stop Captain Falcon pursuing the investigation he wouldn't have started if Stearns hadn't involved him in it to begin with, which then didn't work, so then he sends mind-controlled guards with non-lethal weapons to try and fail to kill Captain Falcon, which he needs to do to restore his causal chain. Then he, maybe leaks to the Japanese that the Americans were behind the adamantium theft, which they weren't, to maybe start a war between the two countries, so that he could then murder an admiral, so he could steal his phone, so he could troll President Ross via a headset he refused to take off for no reason, into hulking out and killing the Japanese fleet, in order to embarrass Ross in front of the world, and further estrange him from his daughter. But that didn't work, because Stearns failed to kill Captain Falcon with his non-lethal weapons, so Captain Falcon saved the Japanese, so then Stearns turns up at a random military base and kills a man with a beard to stop him investigating some hard pills, even though that investigation's a dead end because we already know everything we need to know. Then Stearns goes to the White House and gives himself up and goes to prison because he says it's the only way to get what he wants, even though giving himself up doesn't make any difference because his plan was to tell journalists remotely, as he's done all the way through the movie, that Ross was mean and nasty in the past, which he could have done from anywhere and at any time. Then Stearns tells Captain Falcon not to try and stop the Red Hulk, because if he tries to stop Red Hulk, he'll die. So Captain Falcon tries to stop Red Hulk, and he doesn't die, and Stearns winds up in Azkaban predicting an alien invasion or whatever the fuck. Whew. This is not a smart person. And that's a shame because the film leans on him being a smart person to excuse his incredibly generic motive and his absent philosophy. At one point, he tells Beardman, while killing him, that he, Stearns, is the hero, which I think is a line left over from that version of the movie where he actually had opinions on heroism and such, but which doesn't fit anything about his character in this version of the movie. In this version of the movie, it is just petty revenge he wants. Stearns is only the latest in an increasingly long and unhappy line of movie villains that very dumb writers insist are very smart. But characters, like real people, are only as smart as their deeds. The greater the gulf between grand claims and dumb actions, the more incompetent creation and creator alike seem. Super predictive people and AIs are hard to get right because, more than almost any other character type, their credibility rests on their accuracy, and their mistakes are particularly stark because these character types should be uniquely immune to them. As an anecdotal aside, Kelvin Mackenzie, when he was editor of the Sun newspaper in the United Kingdom, once sent a letter terminating the employment of that publication's house astrologer. The letter began, "As you will no doubt have foreseen, you're fired." It's funny because it exposes the laughable conceit of those who stake their reputation on accuracy and insight that they are incapable of demonstrating. The minute the audience stops being credulous, the esteem of the position disappears. Rules in fiction can be shaped to accommodate super predictors and create believable fail states for them, but no such attempt was made with Stearns. He tells us that the one person he has failed to predict is Captain Falcon, and the why of that statement is never addressed. But we see quite plainly that Stearns gets absolutely everything else wrong as well. It doesn't take a super predictor to spot that attacking people with non-lethal shock sticks is highly unlikely to kill them. A much less super predictor with access to Stearns' technology and resources, and a brain the quarter of the size, but functioning at full capacity, would have found any number of simpler ways to exact his desired revenge against Russ. Stearns in this movie is like the anti-Doctor Strange. He sees a million possible futures, and he picks the one in which his plan is too to succeed. Having mentioned Russ, I've said several times now that he is the only character in this Captain America movie with something approaching an arc. The film is very well aware of this. It's why it has him repeatedly state his start and his later position on said arc. The question is, has Russ changed? The answer is, pretty much yep, but the arc is much flatter than it might appear, because the script ties Russ's potential failure to somebody else's agency. As we join Russ at the beginning of the movie, the answer is quite plainly, yes, he has changed. It's the purpose of his attempts to call his daughter. It's the reason behind his very silly plan to share vibranium fairly and equitably with the world. Two things that are so uncomplicatedly benevolent that the movie's hinge question barely even presents as a question. He gives us no reason to doubt it. We leave completely aside that Russ has had 17 years in which to change and seemed to have undergone quite a bit of it by the time of Civil War. We leave that aside because I cannot be bothered to try and figure out which events back then, if any, Stearns was predicting Russ's path through. Brave New World then attempts to make us doubt what is quite clearly the truth of the matter when it has Russ whiplash from inviting Captain Falcon to reform the Avengers to telling him to fuck off because he's not Steve Rogers, something else that barely resolves in the movie. But this is more than overmatched by Russ's constant refrains about his daughter and his goddamn treaty. The essential conceit of this question is obvious the minute you realize that Russ is being manipulated by an overgrown pea, and it becomes undeniable when you learn about the heart medication. You can't make the argument that Russ hasn't changed if your villain is fucking with his genetics via heart medications full of gamma radiation. At that point, the question of Russ's change of heart becomes redundant. We already know he's changed, and a villain being a dick and trying to change him back is not a counter-argument. It's like me asking you if you're a good driver, and then to prove you're not a good driver, I cut your brakes and fill your tank with semen. Don't judge, it's a hobby. Ross's moral character is never really in doubt. He reverts to his wise old docile self once Stearns' plan is foiled. Generally, when describing an arc centered on the question, has so-and-so changed? You don't want the answers to be yes, yes, and yes. No, you want them to be, maybe? Oh, maybe not. Oh, thank goodness he has. And each of these would be elicited by the character in question with complete agency reacting to events. A Brave New World in which Ross is morally complex, was in command of himself, was clearly conflicted, was willing to do dark things for the greater good, was making morally dubious decisions. That would have been a much stronger movie. And it's possible that this was true of an earlier cut, hence Stearns' trailer lines about corrupt systems and such. But that is not the film we saw, and yes, I said Ross was the only character in Brave New World. His arc is still flat. That's testament to how empty and flat everybody else in the movie is. That brings us, inevitably and at long last, to the film's titular character, Captain Falcon. Sam Wilson was always a bad choice to take up the shield. A perfectly serviceable wingman for the Captain America, there really wasn't enough, in his whopping 30 minutes of screen time across phases 2 and 3, to get anybody interested in what story might be told with him, because there was no evidence there was a story to tell with him. Bucky Barnes, having been at or near the center of 2 important movies, was the natural narrative successor, a super soldier so capable of Steve Rogers' physical feats, but would he have had the mental strength to shoulder all the baggage he brings? How would the country react to the Shield of America being held by a man who was once the most lethal agent of the Soviet Union, the man who killed JFK? Can Bucky overcome his past? Can America forgive and forget? There is tremendous story potential in both his self-doubt and the doubts of the nation and the world that he serves, and a natural hero's journey arc that begins with the refusal of the call and culminates in his return with the elixir, having proven both to himself and to the world that he is worthy to inherit the mantle. Importantly, and in contradistinction to Sam Wilson, significant work was done setting all of this up for Bucky across phases 2 and 3. Sam, on the other hand, he had to be reinvented, pretty much from scratch. The MCU by the time of Endgame was already showing signs of things to come. Baffling story choices determined by nothing more integral to its narrative than vague socio-political gesturing. If you'd asked Steve Rogers why 2 minutes after giving Sam the shield he had made the choice he made, I'm pretty sure he'd have said something like,
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to excuse me.
But Endgame's writers didn't bother trying to put themselves in the mind of a man they thought would be gone for good once the end credits appeared 5 minutes later. They just thought it'd look good to have him give the shield to a black man for the vibes. And so that's what happened. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier was then the first chance to actually give Sam the character of a Captain America. It was the writer's first chance to decide what kind of hero he would be. And oh my God, did they cock it up. Where Bucky would have had the story-natural distrust of those who, in universe, remember what he did and who he used to fight for, Sam Wilson was given the story-unnatural post-hoc burden of racist America to overcome. It is damned near impossible to trace a line between a Sam Wilson who braved arrest to support Steve Rogers, a Sam Wilson who looked up to and admired the ideals Steve represented, and the Sam Wilson who gave moral cover to terrorists, blamed the country for all his problems, and demanded that the government fix everything for him in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. The Sam Wilson who refused to sign the Sokovia Accords would not have looked at the Global Repatriation Council and said, yeah, you'll be fine just as long as you exercise your unchecked power properly. If it seems especially absurd that Sam Wilson did all these things in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, it's because the superhero genre is the natural home of those who value personal merit, virtue, duty, responsibility, and the individual spirit, and yet the genre has been taken over by people who disdain all of these things. Taken to its logical end point, the worldview of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier would have no need of superheroes, because it would have social programs instead. Equity eliminates saints and sinners alike. Terrorists can be cured with a little income redistribution. We can fix supervillains with the administration of a little government assistance. Damn near all of that cancerous sludge was chemoed out of Brave New World, thankfully, but this created another problem. We didn't know why Sam got the shield in Endgame. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier was supposed to answer that question and define what type of Captain America he would be. Excise that show, pretend it didn't happen, remove its themes, get rid of its conclusions, switch Sam back to the blank slate he was at the end of Endgame, and you're back to square one. Why does Sam have the shield? What kind of Captain America is he? What values does he embody? And the answer is... he's got a cool suit. This really does need stressing. This was a Captain America movie. Yet what journey did Captain America go on in this Captain America movie? Well, he started out kicking ass and being awesome and invincible and right about everything. From there, he progressed into kicking ass and being awesome and invincible and right about everything. For about 5 minutes toward the end of the movie, he arbitrarily developed self-doubt. Oh, he said, I should have taken the super serum, like Steve did, and like you did, Bucky, because that's the only reason you're capable of fighting the foes you fight. This is the lesson I learned from fighting side by side with you for many years. I reduced you to the super serum. Ho hum, if I'd taken that super serum, maybe Eagle Twink wouldn't have face-planted an ICBM. But then he was reminded by Congressman-elect Bucky Barnes, no less, that he does indeed kick ass and is awesome and invincible and he's right about everything. Confidence restored, he awesomely and invincibly and rightly beats the big bad. Then he goes to visit Eagle Twink in hospital, where he is outright told that he is awesome and invincible and right about everything. The Sam Wilson who lost a wingman in Afghanistan, who got beaten up by the Winter Soldier, who lost to fucking Ant-Man, who got Rhodey paralyzed from friendly fire, who got blipped because the Avengers failed to stop Thanos, he tells poor Eagle Twink, smarting from his own failure, that he, Sam Wilson, Captain America, the invincible, the awesome, the strong, the right about everything, he never fails. Because to fail is to be a failure and fail all the people who rely on you. That is not something a truly awesome and invincible and right about everything character does. That is not something our new Captain America does, because that's just the kind of guy he is. Awesome, invincible, and right about everything. If he were a woman, we'd call him a Mary Sue. What made Steve Rogers interesting was the man, not the muscles. Steve was arguably the weakest of the superpowered Avengers team, being basically a taller and faster man. But the qualities he had when he was the shorter, weaker, slower, asthmatic kid from Brooklyn were what made him the ideal leader of the group and the ideal role model for people around the world to look up to. The courage, the modesty, the self-sacrifice of an older America played off brilliantly against the genius, the ego, and the selfish brilliance of a more modern mascot, whose technology and resources nonetheless empowered Steve to do many of the things he did. But the all-important thing was that if you took away the shield, Steve Rogers was still Steve Rogers.
That shield doesn't belong to you. You don't deserve it. My father made that shield.
If you take away the suit from Sam Wilson, if you simply stop calling him Captain America, what is he? Well, he just kind of exists. And to think they want him to lead the Avengers. There is more to say on the subject of the Avengers, but since we are shortly to have more Marvel movies, where hopefully we might learn things like who's in the Avengers these days, and what are they doing with their time, and when might we see them again, we shall leave said discussion for later videos. For now, toodaloo.
Like they were physically demanding movies. You're literally, as soon as you wrap the movie, you're in post while you're prepping the next one. Then you're on a press tour for 6 weeks, flying around the world, talking to press every day for 6 weeks, back to set, onto the next one. And we did this over and over and over again for 7 years. We just needed a break. And like sometimes you have to just step away. What's compelling about these two new Avengers movies is they're a beginning. It's a new beginning. You know, so we told an ending story, now we're going to tell a beginning story, and then who knows where we'll go from there. Maybe it'll be another 5 years. But I think we just needed that time and perspective to figure out where it needed to go next. And the only thing that brought us back was the right story.